The Book of Bill landed in our world in July of 2024. It came wrapped in red and black, with one yellow eye staring back from the cover. Alex Hirsch wrote it, but inside the book, the author is Bill Cipher himself, beaming his thoughts from a padded cell outside of space and time. The book is framed as the demon's own twisted memoir, smuggled out of a place called the Theraprism, where Bill is being held until he atones for his crimes. Every page hides something. Some pages hide little jokes. Some pages hide whole confessions. A few pages hide the real story of how a single yellow triangle became the most dangerous being in the multiverse. There are coffee stains that decode into a tomb. There are silly straws that turn into childhood medical abuse. There are crossed out faces of old friends Bill wants you to forget existed. There are missing pages from Journal 3 that Ford Pines tore out because they were too embarrassing to keep. There is a tank outside of space where a salamander god decides who gets a second life. There is a yellow statue in the woods with one finger raised, waiting. And there is a door at the very end of the book where the eye starts to glow blue. Tonight, we are going to walk through every hidden secret in the Book of Bill, one by one, slowly until the door at the end closes behind us. Let us start where Bill wants us to start, with a letter taped to the inside cover. The letter from Ford and the cursed book. Before Bill says a single word, Stanford Pines speaks. In a letter taped to the front of the book, Stanford Pines explains how he found a copy of a book. He warns the reader. He tells us this book is dangerous. He tells us it should not be read. He tells us he tried to burn it and the fire would not catch. He tried to bury it and the dirt rejected it. He tried to feed it to a goat and the goat ran. Nothing worked, so he did the only thing left. He threw the book through a rift in space and hoped it would never find a reader. Like poor Gus Burnside. Stan noted that the book can infect other books, and that all of his attempts to dispose of the book failed. Out of options, he tossed the book through a rift, and it made its way to our world. That rift is the same rift we saw fixed in the previous Gravity Falls book, Lost Legends. Ford originally planned to drop the book into a dimensional tear. He changed his plan later. This is not Websedate.com, revealed he instead disposed of it via the bottomless pit, as he did Journal 3, explaining how it wound up in the reader's hands. The bottomless pit, the same bottomless pit that Mabel and Dipper and Sue sat next to in Season 1. The same one Stan tossed Journal 3 into when he wanted it gone. That pit, it turns out, leads here, to us, to you. The book is in your hands because Ford ran out of ideas, and the universe found a way to put it back into the world anyway. Ford begs you to stop reading. He says, do not turn the page. He says, you have already made a mistake. The book is alive. The book is hungry. The book wants something from you, and the second you open it, you're already in a deal you did not know you were signing. Of course, almost no one stops reading. The triangle talks back. You turn the page anyway, and Bill is waiting. The first voice in the book is his. He greets you like an old friend. He calls you sucker. He tells you that you missed him. He tells you he missed you too, which is a lie. Even his lies are lies, and that is not a metaphor. I figured out the cipher for the Book of Bill. The translation for page 1 is, even his lies are lies. And the others with this code are, if lost return to Bill, my optometrist never saw it coming, and Daryl. Those 4 little phrases come from a cipher hidden on the very first page of the book. They are the rules of the game you have just agreed to play. Even his lies are lies. If lost return to Bill, my optometrist never saw it coming. And Daryl, we will come back to the optometrist later, because that one is dark, and we are not ready for it yet. We will come back to Daryl too, because Daryl is not a small detail. He is a clue. For now, Bill makes you a deal. He says he will tell you the truth about himself. He says he will let you see his life through his eye. He says he will share his secrets, his enemies, his old crew, his old love, his old home, and the one trick he has left up his sleeve to come back to life. All you have to do in exchange is keep reading. Just turn the pages. Just keep going. Just say his name out loud. Just stare at the eye on the cover for one more second. And just like that, the same trick he played on Stanford Pines all those years ago, he is playing on you. A demon in the mindscape. We are in our first theme now, so let us go all the way back to where Bill first appeared in the show. The episode is Dreamscaperers, Season 1, Episode 19. Gideon Gleeful summons a demon to steal the deed to the mystery shack from Stan's mind. The demon shows up floating in a black void, top hat on his head, brick eye glowing. Bill Cipher is a two-dimensional interdimensional dream demon from the now-destroyed dimension, Euclidia, formerly existent only in the mindscape. Bill briefly succeeded in gaining access to the real world and a physical form. He had been running amok in Gravity Falls, Oregon since being summoned by Ford Pines over 30 years ago. That is the version of Bill the show gave us. A dream demon, a trickster, a glowing yellow shape with a black hat. The Book of Bill takes that image and breaks it open. Bill is not just a dream demon. Bill is a refugee. Bill is a fugitive. Bill is a grieving child wearing his dead father's hat. Bill is the last living member of an entire species he wiped out with his own two hands. Every joke he tells is a wound he refuses to look at. Every smile is a scar he is pretending is not there. The book never says any of this out loud. The book whispers it through coffee stains and color codes, and crossed-out pictures and song lyrics in dead languages. And the first place the whisper begins is a flat dimension that 1 trillion years ago burned to ash. Euclidia, the flat place. In the show, we got hints. In Weirdmageddon Part 3, Take Back the Falls, Bill brings up his home for a moment when his henchmaniacs are partying in the destroyed town. He calls it a flat place, full of flat minds. He says he freed them. He says they are grateful. Euclidia, or the second dimension, is the name of Bill Cipher's origin dimension. Inhabited by beings known as Euclideans, it was destroyed almost exactly 1 trillion years ago through unknown means by Bill. The show stops there. The Book of Bill keeps going. Over 1 trillion years prior to the events of the series, Bill Cipher was born. He originated from a two-dimensional universe known as Euclidia. When he was born, he had Velcro shoes that squeaked when he ran, and was beloved by everyone so much that the mayor declared his birthday a national holiday. On his birthday, Bill gave out free knives to everyone as a gift. That is the official story Bill tells in the book. Beloved baby. Velcro shoes that squeaked. Free knives for everyone. A whole town that loved him so much his birthday was a holiday. His parents were named Euclid and Scalene. His father was the mayor. They lived in a small flat town in a small flat world, and everything was perfect. That is the lie. The truth is buried in the color cipher. Throughout the book, certain words and phrases are written in patterns of color that, when decoded, spell out new sentences. They speak in color ciphers, which frequently appears throughout the Book of Bill, and thisisnotabwebsite.com, strongly insinuating they are alive through Bill in some way. Those color sentences are not from Bill. Those color sentences are from his parents. From beyond the grave, from inside his own head, Scalene and Euclid never really left him. They are still in there, still whispering, still trying to talk sense into their lost son. And one of the first things they whisper through the color code is that the official story is wrong. Bill was not loved. Bill was hated. Bill was different. Bill could see something no one else could see. Bill could see up. The mutation? In a two-dimensional world, there is no up. There is only left and right, forward and back. Everyone walks on a flat plane. Everyone sees the same flat line of sight. While the dimension is not shown, Euclidia is said to be a two-dimensional realm, one that three-dimensional minds couldn't process. Its inhabitants take the form of sentient two-dimensional shapes that bump around endlessly within. Their line of scope limited to a flat line of sight. Then a baby is born with one giant eye in the middle of his face, and that eye sees something no Euclidean has ever seen. The eye sees the third dimension. The eye sees up. There was one other thing about him that was different. He had a mutation that gave him an abnormally large eye that allowed him to see the third dimension. With that, he had the ability to see a direction known as up, something all others of his dimension could not see. Despite talk of a third dimension was illegal in his world, Bill was unable to think of anything else but being able to join it. So little Bill, all alone in a flat town, sees stars. He sees clouds. He sees up, and he tries to tell people about it. He tells his parents, he tells his neighbors, he tells the mayor, who is also his father. And everyone tells him the same thing. Stop. Stop saying that. Stop seeing that. That is illegal. That is not real. That is a sickness. The fandom on Tumblr has been picking apart what happens next for over a year now. The Silly Straws page in the book looks like a goofy joke chapter at first. Bill spends a whole spread talking about how much he loves silly straws and how they bend in funny ways. Then you decode the color cipher on the page. The Silly Straw page, which looks like silly nonsense until you decipher some of the codes. Eye doctor of a different kind, WHO wants to make his patients blind. The doctor says 3 sips a day will make the visions go away. The silly straws are not silly, they are medicine cups. They are a little kid being told to drink something 3 times a day to stop seeing the third dimension. His parents took him to an eye doctor. The eye doctor said the visions were the problem. The eye doctor prescribed sips. 3 sips a day will make the visions go away. That is the eye doctor, whose name is Daryl. That is the optometrist who never saw it coming. The line on page 1 of the book, "My optometrist never saw it coming," is not a joke. It is a confession. It is the first crime Bill ever committed, and one that he has been bragging about under his breath ever since. The doctor who tried to medicate the sight out of him. The doctor who told a little boy that the truth he could see with his own eye was a disease. That doctor somewhere in the long story of Bill's life did not make it out, and we are only on page 1. The book has hundreds more pages, and we have a lot more to walk through. So let us breathe and turn the page slowly and step into the next room of the story. The day Euclidia burned. So Bill grows up looking at a sky no one else sees. He grows up sipping medicine that does not work. He grows up listening to his mother sing him lullabies because his mind will not stop racing. His mother is named Scalene. She is shaped like a small triangle, just like him. His father is named Euclid, and he wears a top hat. As one of Bill's parents, possibly Euclid, is wearing his iconic top hat, it's possible that Bill's hat is a keepsake from his parents and a memento he keeps of them. That little detail is the kind of thing the fandom caught right away. The hat Bill wears in every single scene of Gravity Falls is not just a hat. It is a father's hat. Bill is wearing the last piece of his dad. Every time he tips it, every time he doffs it to a Pines twin, every time he flips it during a deal, he is touching the only physical thing left from a man he killed, because that is what happened. Bill killed him. Bill killed his mother. Bill killed his whole world. The book never gives us the moment cleanly. Bill cannot tell it cleanly. When he tells Ford about his home dimension, he says that it was destroyed by a monster. And when Ford says that he could seek out the monster and get revenge on it, Bill replies, "Sixer, it would eat you alive." Bill also says that if he tries to talk about the day Euclidia was destroyed, there's a loud buzzing in his ears and he blacks out for 30 seconds. So we get the day through fragments, through what Ford writes in his missing journal pages, through what the Oracle tells Ford on her mountain, through what slips out of Bill's mouth when he is drunk, through what his dead parents whisper in color code from inside his head. What we can piece together is this. Bill wanted to share the third dimension with the people he loved. He wanted them to see what he could see. He thought if he could just show them just for 1 second, they would understand. So he did something. The Book of Bill never tells us what exactly. As told in the Book of Bill, Bill destroyed his home dimension by accident because he tried to free them and help them see the third dimension, or in his words, see the stars. Maybe he tore the fabric of the plane. Maybe he pulled them up. Maybe he showed them a window. Whatever he did, it killed them. Every single one of them. The mayor, the neighbors, the eye doctor, the mother who sang to him, the father whose hat he is still wearing. He showed them the third dimension, which resulted in his entire species getting violently ripped apart in a fiery chaos, killing all those he had ever known, including his own family and few friends, and effectively wiping out his entire species. A two-dimensional being cannot survive being pulled into 3 dimensions. It is too much information. It is too much existence. They came apart. They burned. Bill stood in the ashes of a flat world he had unflattened, and he was the only thing left standing. The fandom has a name for this event, the Euclidean Massacre. The crime referenced in the poem is further detailed in the Journal 3 and the Book of Bill, which state that he caused a catastrophe that resulted in the annihilation of his home dimension Euclidia, known throughout the multiverse as the Euclidean Massacre. That is what other beings across the multiverse call it, not an accident, not a tragedy, a massacre. Because whether Bill meant to do it or not, the entire civilization is dead because of him. And the rest of the universe has had 1 trillion years to make up its mind about whose fault that is. The coffee-stained tomb. Here's where the book gets clever. Here's where Hirsch shows you the body and pretends he did not. Scattered through the pages of the Book of Bill are little brown circles. They look like coffee cup stains. Like Bill set his mug down on the manuscript and left rings on the paper. They look careless. They look like part of the texture of the book. One of the more creative ciphers featured in the book involved coffee cup stains scattered throughout the pages. When those coffee cup stains were matched up against a cipher wheel from a page of the book that explicitly promised the book wouldn't contain any puzzles, a message. His dimension now deceased. Scalene and Euclid rest in peace. Rest in peace. Spelled with a P, not peace. Peace. As in pieces, as in broken into pieces, as in scattered. That is a tombstone. That is a tombstone hidden across an entire book. The coffee stains are not stains. They are gravestones. Every single one of them is a tiny marker for the dead. And when you line them up, they spell out the name of the dimension Bill destroyed, and the names of the two people who loved him most. His mother, his father. Rest in peace, because pieces is all that is left. The same page of the book has Bill standing in front of the reader, smiling, telling you there are no puzzles in this book. He swears it. He gives you his word as a dream demon. He says there is nothing to look for. Trust him. And of course, the wheel that decodes the tombstones is on that very page. The page that says there are no puzzles is the page that contains the key to the biggest puzzle. Bill is lying to your face while the truth sits on the same page he is lying on. That is how the whole book works. That is how Bill works. The fandom calls this kind of moment a confession in plain sight. Bill is the worst kind of liar, the kind who tells the truth in places he thinks you will not look. Scalene and Euclid speak through the color. Now we come to the color cipher properly, because this is the most haunting thing in the whole book. Despite their deaths, they still speak through Bill somehow in their language. With implications, they are still somehow alive inside of Bill, while warning the reader about him in the Book of Bill, as well as trying to talk sense into their son over his actions. All through the Book of Bill, certain letters and shapes are colored in patterns. Reds, blues, yellows, greens in a specific order. When fans worked it out, the order corresponded to a language. The language was the language of Euclidia, the dead language. And the messages were not from Bill. They were addressed to Bill. Some of them say things like, "Our boy, please come home." Some of them say things like, "What have you done?" Some of them are warnings to the reader. Beware of him. He lies. He is sick. He is hurting. Help him if you can. Run from him if you must. The fandom split on what this means. Some think Bill's parents are literally alive somewhere. Ghosts trapped in their son's mind, beaming through to anyone who can read the color code. Some think Bill imagines them so hard they have become real inside his head, like a constant hallucination shaped by guilt. Some think the whole color cipher is Bill himself, writing in a voice he cannot admit is his, leaving little messages for himself that look like they came from his parents. They speak in color ciphers, which frequently appears throughout the Book of Bill, and this is not Bebsite.com, strongly insinuating they are alive through Bill in some way. Whatever the answer is, the effect is the same. Bill is haunted. The book is haunted. The pages literally cannot hold him without his dead parents bleeding through in color. We will come back to the parents at the end of the book, when the axolotl shows up, because they have one more job to do. But before then, we have to follow Bill out of Euclidia and into the long story of where he went next. 1 trillion years of wandering. Bill is the only thing left of his world. He is a two-dimensional shape floating in nothing. He is grieving. He is also a god, basically. The mutation that let him see the third dimension turned out to do a lot more than that. It made him untethered from the rules that killed everyone else. He survived. He grew. He stopped being a small flat boy and started being something larger. The book covers what comes next in pieces. Bill drifts. He stumbles into other dimensions. He finds the Nightmare Realm, a half-collapsing place between worlds, and starts to call it home. He picks up his hat from somewhere, or maybe he was wearing it the whole time. He starts to find other beings like him. Misfits, monsters, cast-offs, creatures that nobody wanted in their dimensions, who got pushed through cracks into the Nightmare Realm too. He gathers them up. He gives them a leader. He gives them a cause. He calls them the Henchmaniacs. In the show, we meet some of them in Weirdmageddon Part 1. Pyronica with the flaming pink head. 8-Ball with the spherical 8-ball for a face. Teeth, who is just a big mouth. Kryptos, the diamond amorphous shape. Hectorgon, Pacifier, Xanthar. They all show up in the apocalypse and party in the destroyed town while Bill watches from above. The show makes them look like Bill's friends. The Book of Bill makes them look like Bill's victims, because the Henchmaniacs were not always who they are now. The Book of Bill shows the crew in old photos, in deal pages, in wanted posters. A picture of Bill and his Henchmaniacs driving away from interdimensional cops shows Pyronica with a box reading Censored over her chest, with her pose implying that she is flashing the cops. They are running from the law. They are stealing. They are committing crimes across dimensions. Bill is the ringleader. Bill is the one who pulled them in. Bill is the one who promised them something better than what they had and gave them chaos instead. And one of the photos in the book has a face that is scratched out. Painted over? Blacked out so hard you can barely see the shape underneath, but you can almost see it. You can almost see a hooded figure with 7 eyes. The one who got away. This is the Oracle. This is Jessel Brown the Unswerving. This is the woman who saved Ford Pines on a mountain in Dimension 52. This is the woman who told Ford the truth about Bill. This is the woman who, the Book of Bill quietly confirms, used to be one of Bill's own crew. Jessel Brown the Unswerving, better known as the Oracle and formerly nicknamed 7 Eyes, is a mysterious and enigmatic entity that Stanford Pines met during his exile. She seems to have some kind of grudge against Bill Cipher for reasons unknown, though the Book of Bill implies that she was a part of his crew at one point. In Journal 3 and in the show, the Oracle is the woman who gave Ford the metal plate in his head. She was the one who gave Ford the metal plate in his head. The plate is what kept Bill out. The plate is the reason Ford could resist Bill in the finale. The plate is the only reason Stan ever got to punch the demon in his brother's face. And the woman who gave Ford that plate used to ride with Bill, used to laugh with Bill, used to commit interdimensional crimes with Bill. What changed? The Book of Bill never tells us straight. The fandom has dug into this one obsessively. I finally got more information on the Oracle. Yes, I'm still doing research. And I got info, so she was part of the Henchmaniacs, but her thing was scribbled out. Well, if you put it together, it says, the smartest one figured out how seal dimensional portals. Got too smart, who needs her too many eyes anyways. The smartest one figured out how to seal dimensional portals. Got too smart, who needs her? Too many eyes anyways. That is the line on the scribbled out page. The Oracle, somewhere along the line, figured out how to lock dimensions down, to stop Bill from jumping between worlds the way he had been. That is a threat. That is a knife to the heart of his whole project. So Bill with his crew kicked her out, or worse. The book is not clear if she walked away or barely escaped. The fandom theory that has the most traction is that the Oracle was not just a crew member. The Oracle was Bill's partner. The Oracle was the closest thing to a love story Bill ever had, until he scratched her face out of every photograph. Seeing as Bill vehemently denies her existence, it's likely that she deeply hurt Bill when she betrayed him. That is why he refuses to name her in the Book of Bill. That is why she only appears as a black smudge. That is why he tells Ford he doesn't know anyone like her. He cannot stand to write her name down. She broke something in him, or he broke something in her. And either way, she is a wound that has not closed. And she is the one who told Ford about Bill's past. She is the reason Ford knew enough to fight him. She is the reason Ford built the metal plate. She is the reason the door to the portal was eventually closed. Bill made one enemy in his trillion years of wandering who actually knew him from the inside. And that enemy is the one who eventually helped take him down. The book hides her in scratched-out ink and blacked-out photos because Bill cannot stand to admit it. Recognizing that her former colleagues, the henchmaniacs, were manipulated into joining Bill and abused by him, the Oracle chose to forgive their misdeeds and grant them safe passage to dimensions beyond dimensional authority and Bill's influence. She even, somewhere in there, forgave the rest of the henchmaniacs and helped some of them escape. The Oracle is the one who got away and the one who came back to finish the job. The first patron. Before Ford, Bill had others. The book gives us a parade of humans Bill tried to use across history. The first one in the deep past is a man named MODOK. It's implied that she might be responsible for Bill's first patron MODOK turning on him after she told him about Bill's true intentions. MODOK is a prehistoric figure Bill tried to make into his vessel. A shaman. A man with one eye. A man who in the original show appears in a wall painting in The Last Mabelcorn, where Ford explains how Bill first arrived in the area that would one day become Gravity Falls. When Ford discovers hieroglyphics in a cave near Gravity Falls, he makes the mistake of reading the shaman's incantation, which allows Bill into Ford's mindscape. Ford reads the same incantation the shaman read. That is how Bill gets in. That is the loophole. That is the rule of the game. Someone with the right words, with the right symbols, with the right doorway in their mind can let Bill in. And in the dark past of the Pacific Northwest, MODOK was the first person who tried. The book hints that MODOK turned on Bill at the end. He sealed Bill back into the cave with a curse. He drew the hieroglyphics that for thousands of years kept Bill locked out of the third dimension. Nothing worked until one day, someone reverses the shaman's curse and summons him back to Gravity Falls. Until Ford Pines, decades later, walked into that cave and read the words. The Oracle, the book hints, may have been the one who whispered to MODOK that he was being lied to. The Oracle is the spider in the web. The Oracle is the reason Bill has had to fight for every doorway he ever opened. So Bill, in his anger, has spent the thousands of years between MODOK and Ford trying every other angle, trying every other patron, trying every other way to get a foothold in the third dimension. And the Book of Bill walks us through every one of them. Bill's long tour of human history. This is one of the funniest parts of the book and one of the darkest. Bill tells us in his bragging voice that he has been pulling strings in human history for centuries. The fandom has had a field day picking through which historical disasters Bill claims credit for. The book is careful. It does not name every real person directly, but it gestures. Bill tries to use animation to get to the minds of the world to build his portal. After that failed, Bill tries to see if nuclear testing could make his portal work, only to have him be captured by the government before escaping. Bill then tries music, computer technology, and even collectible figurines to manipulate the masses to his cause. Animation, nuclear testing, music, computer technology, collectible figurines. Each one is a different decade of the 20th century. Each one is Bill trying a different mass medium to spread himself into enough human minds to crack reality open, and each one fails just barely until the one summoning that finally works. The book also mentions the Anti-Cipher Society, a group of people who tried to stop him 125 years ago. Eventually, his attempts at getting to people in America leads to the creation of the Anti-Cipher Society in 1901. Founded by Thurbert Mudgett Wagstaff III. He and various other victims of Bill tried to defeat him, but are deemed a joke after trying to get funding to enclose America in a Bill hunting suit. The Anti-Cipher Society was founded by a man named Thurbert Mudgett Wagstaff III, and their plan to defeat Bill was to enclose the entire continental United States in a giant Bill-proof suit. The book treats this as a joke. The fandom treats it as a tragedy. These were real victims of Bill in the book's lore, and their pain was treated as a punchline by everyone around them, including Bill. They were laughed out of every government meeting they tried to hold. They died poor and disbelieved, and Bill kept moving. We will come back to one specific patron of Bill's, because he is the one who almost worked. He is the one who actually built the portal. He is the one whose journal we have all been reading for 10 years now. And his name is Stanford Pines. But before we get to him, we have to walk through Bill's collection, because the book does something deeply unsettling, deeply specific, in one of its middle chapters. It opens a drawer and shows us all the people Bill kept the head collection. Somewhere in the middle of the Book of Bill, there is a chapter Bill calls his head collection. He invites the reader in, like he is opening a curio cabinet, like he is showing off his most prized possessions. The pages are illustrated like a museum gallery, floating heads on dark backgrounds, each one labeled with a name and a little caption, each one with that distant Bill humor running across the description. He treats it as a joke. The fandom on Tumblr and Reddit treats it as one of the most disturbing things in the whole book. After assuring readers there are no codes in his book, which is a lie, Bill shows off his horrible heads collection and talks about the mindscape and dreams of various Pines family members and characters. The collection is exactly what it sounds like. Disembodied heads of every kind. Some are humanoid, some are not. Some have horns. Some have too many eyes. Some are just blobs with mouths. They float in jars. They sit on shelves. They stare out at the reader. And every single one of them used to be a deal partner of Bill's. This is the part of the book that confirms what Gravity Falls fans had only guessed at for 10 years. Bill does not just trick his patrons. Bill collects them. When a deal goes wrong, when a human gives Bill what he wants and is no longer useful, Bill takes a souvenir. Not always literally a head. The fandom debate is whether the heads are physical or just symbolic, just the spirits of the people he ruined. But the message is the same. Every face on that shelf is a person Bill broke. You start to recognize some of the labels. There is a head that looks suspiciously like MODOK, the shaman from the cave painting. There is a head that might be one of the Anti-Cipher Society members. There's a head with a hat similar to one Fiddleford might have worn in an alternate timeline. The book never confirms any of these directly. It hints, it nudges, it lets you do the work. And the work is grim, because every time you recognize a head, you're realizing that one more person who tried to be Bill's friend or his enemy or his tool did not make it out. There is even a head, some fans believe, that resembles a figure from another Disney show entirely. Bill tried to get several humans to build his portal, even seemingly meeting the Owl House's Philip Whittabane on the way, continuing the connection between the two shows, but grew truly close to Ford. Philip Whittabane, the Emperor Bellos of the Owl House in his original human form. Long before he became the Emperor on the Boiling Isles, he was just a witch hunter in colonial New England. And the Book of Bill quietly suggests Bill met him along the way, tried to use him, tried to make him a patron. The two shows have been winking at each other for years now, and the Book of Bill makes the wink official. The same dimension Bill walks in is the same dimension that produced Bellos. Two of Disney's nastiest villains, once standing in the same room. The head collection chapter is, more than anything, Bill showing off. He wants you to know how many people he has gotten to. He wants you to feel small. He wants you to remember that you are reading a book written by a serial trickster with a kill list 1 trillion years long. And right after he shows you the heads, he flips the page and tells you about the next person he wants in his collection, which is you. Which is whoever happens to be holding the book. This is also where the book starts dropping hints about a specific name, a name that means a lot in the fandom. The name is MODOK, and the name is Stanford. And the name in between them is one we have not gotten to yet. A name that Bill almost succeeded with. A name that almost broke history. And his name is Fiddleford. The Fiddleford Pages. If you are deep in the Gravity Falls fandom, you know Fiddleford Hadron McGucket. You know him as Old Man McGucket. You know him from the dump. You know him from the Kitten Fist. You know him from the Society of the Blind Eye. You know him from the moment in the Season 2 finale when he takes off his beard and stands up tall and reveals he is a scientist. The Book of Bill makes Fiddleford's role bigger than the show ever did. The book makes Fiddleford one of the most important people Bill ever underestimated. In the missing pages of Journal 3, the ones Bill kept and reproduced in his book, Ford writes about his friendship with Fiddleford in a way the original Journal 3 never showed. The missing Journal 3 pages in TBOB are so interesting to me, in further contextualizing Ford's mindset of shame regarding Bill. Ford was lonely. Ford was new to Oregon. Ford had no friends. Ford had a degree from Backup-Smore and a 6-fingered hand, and a brain that scared everyone around him. The one person who answered his letters was Fiddleford. The one person who came out to the woods with him was Fiddleford. The one person who helped him build the portal was Fiddleford. And the one person Bill tried to push out of the picture immediately was Fiddleford. In Journal 3's missing pages, Bill also convinces Ford to be wary of his colleague, McGucket, reminding him to trust no one. That is the Bill playbook. Isolate the patron. Cut the friend out. Make Ford suspicious of the only person in his life who actually cared about him. The book lets us see this in Bill's own voice, which is worse than seeing it in Ford's. Bill brags about it. Bill thinks it was clever. Bill talks about Fiddleford the way a bully talks about the smaller kid he managed to scare off. Bill calls him names. Bill says he was a hick. Bill says he was a fool. Bill says he was a problem that solved itself the moment he looked into the portal. The moment Fiddleford looked into the portal is the moment everything changes for him, of course. The show told us that in Society of the Blind Eye, Fiddleford saw something on the other side. Something that broke his mind. Something he could never unsee. He invented the memory gun to wipe it out. He used the gun on himself, over and over, until he was hollow. He became Old Man McGucket. He lost decades of his own life. The Book of Bill puts the blame for that exactly where it belongs. Bill saw Fiddleford as a threat from day one. Bill was thrilled when Fiddleford saw the Nightmare Realm. Bill was thrilled when Fiddleford started erasing himself. Bill thought he had won. He had not won, because here's what Fiddleford did after he wiped himself. Here's what the book makes clear in a way the show only hinted at. Eventually, this is not a website.com updated to grant visitors access to its current state. Mad scientist Fiddleford McGucket's laboratory, featuring a copy of the Book of Bill impaled on a dagger and an antiquated computer with a glowing green prompt box. The tie-in website to the Book of Bill is set in Fiddleford's lab. The book has been stabbed through with a dagger. The book is being held there by Fiddleford. Old Man McGucket, the same man Bill thought he had destroyed, is the warden of the cursed book in our world. He is the one who pulled it out of the bottomless pit. He is the one who pinned it to the workbench. He is the one who built a computer to talk to it and pry out its secrets. Bill underestimated Fiddleford in 1982. Bill underestimated Fiddleford during Weirdmageddon, when Fiddleford built the Shacktron, and Bill underestimated Fiddleford after his own death, when the broken old scientist became the one human who could keep the book locked up. The fandom loves this. The fandom calls it the Fiddleford Redemption Arc, and it stretches across 3 Gravity Falls books now, plus the website. Every time Bill thinks he has won, Fiddleford finds a screwdriver and a soldering iron and a way to win back. The snake on the journal. Here is one of those tiny details the Book of Bill drops that the fandom went wild for. In one of the missing journal pages reprinted in the book, Bill has attached a small drawing of a snake to one of Ford's journal entries. It is a doodle. It is the kind of thing Bill would scribble in the margin when Ford was not looking. It is a snake coiled around a tree. The snake Bill taped to Ford's journal has a code on its skin. The fandom caught it within hours of release. The scales on the snake are not random. The pattern decodes. The pattern decodes into a warning Bill left for Ford that Ford never saw, or into a love note, or into a curse. Depending on which fan transcription you trust, the message says different things. Some say it spells out the date Ford would fall into the portal. Some say it spells out the names of the Pines twins, Mabel and Dipper, decades before they would even be born. Some say it spells out the name of the axolotl in a backwards way, hidden in plain sight from the moment Bill first arrived in Ford's basement. Whatever the snake actually says, the point is the same. Bill was leaving messages everywhere. Bill was building puzzles inside. Puzzles inside puzzles. Every page Ford turned, Bill was hiding more of himself in the margins. Every line Ford wrote, Bill was adding a curl or a flourish that meant something else. The journal Dipper carried through Season 1 of Gravity Falls was, in its lost form, half a love letter and half a death sentence. And neither Ford nor Dipper knew the half of it. The fandom obsession with this snake page is part of a bigger pattern in the book. Hirsch hid so many layers in this thing that even now, almost 2 years after release, people are still finding new ones. This book's secrets are still being solved as I type and you, dear reader, read this review. I cannot wait to see what secrets are uncovered. Just remember, the universe is a hologram reality. is an illusion by gold by E.A. Al Ek. Every week, another Reddit thread surfaces with a new cipher break. Every month, another Tumblr post points out a new bit of background art that turns out to be a clue. The book is bottomless on purpose. Bill says it himself in one of his rants. He wanted to give the reader something that would never finish revealing itself. He wanted you to keep coming back. He wanted you to keep turning the pages. He wanted you to keep looking at him. That, more than anything, is the secret at the center of the Head Collection chapter. Every head on the shelf used to be a person who could not stop looking at Bill, who kept turning the page, who kept saying his name, who kept making the deal one more time. That is how he collected them. That is how he is collecting you. The book is the trap, the reader is the bait, and the trap closes one cipher at a time. Ford and Bill in the Mindscape. Now we get to the section of the book that the fandom genuinely lost their minds over. The Ford pages? The Stanford Pines pages. The ones that recontextualize the entire show? Ford summoned Bill into his mind in 1982. The show told us this in pieces, across a tale of two Stans, The Last Mabelcorn, and Dipper and Mabel versus the future. Ford was alone in his cabin. Ford was struggling. Ford found a cave with the hieroglyphics. Ford read the words. Bill walked in. Bill called himself a muse. Bill offered Ford the answers to the universe. Ford said yes. And for 3 years in the show's version, Bill and Ford were partners. Bill claims to be a muse, offering Ford his limitless knowledge in exchange for taking up residence in Ford's mind. When Ford agrees, Bill lets him in on a few secrets about parallel dimensions, and most importantly, how to create an interdimensional portal. The Book of Bill says it was longer than 3 years emotionally. The Book of Bill says it was more than partnership. The Book of Bill says it was the closest thing to friendship either of them had ever had. Ford isn't some unfeeling robot powered solely by knowledge. He has human needs. He was lonely. Lonely enough to summon a demon for companionship. A companionship so intimate. He describes his meeting Bill as the best day of his life and laments the periods of absence from him. The best day of his life. Those are Ford's own words in the missing pages about meeting Bill. Not the day he won the science fair. Not the day he graduated. Not the day his brother first hugged him. The best day of his life was the day a yellow triangle floated into his cabin and called him brilliant. That is the wound the book reveals. Ford was not seduced by knowledge. Ford was seduced by being seen. Bill was the first being in Ford's life who looked at all 6 of his fingers, all of his brain, all of his obsessions, and said yes. Yes, I want all of that. Yes, you are a genius. Yes, we will build this together. The fandom calls this the Bilford reading, and the fandom has been screaming about it since the day the book dropped. Under the shame of unleashing Bill Cipher's destruction on the world, there's a much deeper shame. That Stanford Pines is not a lone wolf, unfeeling sci-fi hero, but a fallible human being capable of illogical sentimentality and longing for approval, an inhuman connection. Ford's shame is not just that he opened the portal. Ford's shame is that he loved the thing that betrayed him. He cannot say it out loud even 30 years later. He cannot say it to Dipper. He cannot say it to Stan. He can barely say it to himself. The missing pages are missing because Ford could not bear to keep them in his journal. They were too embarrassing. They were too honest. They were too soft for the hard scientist he wanted to be. So Bill kept them. Bill took them out of the trash. Bill stitched them back together, and Bill put them in his book because he knew there was no better way to humiliate Ford than to make those pages public. The Book of Bill, more than anything else, is Bill's revenge on the patron who finally pushed him out. He cannot reach Ford in the real world anymore. He is in the Theraprism. He cannot get out. But he can publish a book full of Ford's secret feelings, and he can wait for someone to read it, and he can hope Ford finds out, and he can imagine the look on Ford's face when Ford realizes everyone knows now. This is petty. This is small. This is the most human thing Bill does in the entire book. Bill, the trillion-year-old demon who killed an entire dimension, holding a grudge against one human scientist because that scientist finally stopped loving him. Reading the missing pages, you almost feel bad for him. Almost. I grow maddened. There is one specific moment from the missing pages that the fandom likes to bring up. It is the moment Ford finally figured out who Bill really was. It is the moment everything cracked. When a telling anagram appears in his dream, I grow maddened becomes Weirdmageddon. Ford considers destroying his journals. When he realizes that Bill has been trying to activate the portal, Ford tries to create a Bill-proof suit. Ford had a dream. In the dream, the words "I grow maddened" were written somewhere. He woke up and rearranged the letters. They spelled Weirdmageddon. Bill's apocalypse, the end of the world. The reason Bill wanted the portal open, not for science, not for friendship, to bring his whole crew of misfit demons into the third dimension and tear humanity apart. Ford realized in that one moment that his best friend was planning to use him to end the world. The book pages around this moment are some of the darkest in the entire volume. Ford sketches the Bill-proof suit. Ford writes about not being able to sleep. Ford writes about the metal plate. Ford writes about wanting to die rather than let Bill use his body. Ford writes about calling his brother because his brother was the only person in the world who knew his face well enough to step into his shoes without anyone noticing. He calls Stan. These torn-out pages eventually culminate in Ford calling his brother Stan. When Grunkle Stan shows up, the brothers get into a heated argument, which results in Ford being stranded in the portal. The portal accident in the show is one scene. In the Book of Bill, the lead-up is excruciating. We see weeks of Ford trying to dismantle the portal. We see Ford trying to find a way to hide the journal. We see Ford realizing he is being watched in his sleep. We see Ford sleeping in a triangle-proof room with the lights on. We see Bill in the corner of every page, still smiling, still acting like nothing has changed, still calling Ford his best friend, even as Ford is trying to figure out how to kill him. When Stan finally shows up, the fight is not really about the journal. The fight is about Ford trying to keep his brother safe, and Ford being too proud to admit he is scared. They push each other into the portal room. Ford falls in. Bill, on the other side, gets exactly what he wants. The portal is finished, but its operator is gone, and now Bill has 30 years to wait for Ford to come back, and 30 years to find another way in. And the book lingers in those last torn-out pages, on the look on Ford's face as he falls. He is not looking at Stan. He is looking up. He is looking at the corner of the room. He is looking at where he knows Bill is floating, invisibly watching him fall. And Ford's last thought, written in the very margin of the page in tiny ciphered script, is one of the most heartbreaking lines in the book. The fandom has translated it dozens of times. The most common reading is, "You were never my friend. Trust no one." So Ford is in the portal. Stan is alone with the journal. Bill is in the nightmare realm, waiting. And the show takes 30 years to catch up to that moment. We get the show, we get Dipper and Mabel arriving in summer 2012. We get the Mystery Shack. We get the rug with the triangle on it. We get the window in the attic with the triangle in the glass. We get the title sequence with the triangle hidden in the trees. Bill is pictured throughout the entire series, such as the rug in the Mystery Shack, the window in the building's attic, and is pictured in the title sequence. Every single one of those visual signatures was Bill, watching, waiting, marking the territory long before he ever appeared on screen. The Book of Bill confirms what fans had been saying for years. Bill was never gone during seasons 1 and 2 of the show. Bill was always there. Bill was in the mindscape. Bill was in the dreams of half the cast. Bill was working through Gideon Gleeful even before Gideon summoned him in Dreamscapers. Bill was pulling at strings. Bill was waiting for the rift to open, and every page Ford ever ripped out, every secret Ford ever tried to bury, Bill kept. Bill had a copy of everything. Bill had the patience of 1,000,000,000 years and the bitterness of a single betrayal, and he was using that time to plan. The Book of Bill is the document of that planning. The Book of Bill is what Bill was holding when nobody was looking. The Book of Bill is the file folder of every weakness in the Pines family that Bill ever spotted. Which brings us to the Dreams chapter, because before we walk into Weirdmageddon, before we walk into the apocalypse, before we walk into the final showdown in Stan's mind, we have to walk through the dreams Bill peeked into. We have to know what Bill saw when he looked into the heads of the family he was about to destroy. The Dreams chapter. The Book of Bill has a section that the fandom calls the Dreams chapter. After assuring readers there are no codes in his book, which is a lie, Bill shows off his horrible heads collection and talks about the mindscape and dreams of various Pines family members and characters. It is a tour of the inside of every important character's head. Bill walks the reader through what they dream about. Bill describes their nightmares. Bill describes their soft spots. Bill describes the things they hide even from themselves. He treats it like a guidebook. He treats it like a menu. He is showing you, the reader, exactly what he could use against each person. If he was ever given the chance again, this chapter is mean. This chapter is intimate. This chapter is the kind of thing a stalker keeps in a notebook under their bed. And the dreams Bill picks are the ones that hurt the most. Let us go one by one. Stanford's dream. Stanford dreams about a pop quiz asking what he is attracted to. That is it. That is the dream Bill puts on the page. For the smartest man in Gravity Falls, Ford Pines, the man with 12 PhDs, the man who built an interdimensional portal in his basement, the man who has been to 50 dimensions and survived them all, dreams about a pop quiz, a school test with one question. And the question is, what are you attracted to? The fandom understood this immediately. Ford has never figured himself out. Ford has spent his entire adult life avoiding the question. Ford built a career, built a portal, built a whole exile across realities, all so he would never have to sit still and answer the simple question of who he loved and why. Bill knew this. Bill exploited this. Bill was the answer Ford could not say out loud for 30 years. And the dream is Bill's way of telling the reader, see, I was the closest he ever got. Even now in his sleep, he is still trying to write the answer down. The Tumblr fandom has been arguing about Ford's queerness since the show ended in 2016. The Book of Bill leans into it without saying it. It does not need to say it. The dream says it. The missing journal pages say it. The shrine Ford built to Bill in his basement, which Ford never took down even after 30 years of being betrayed, says it. I do feel that in the wake of T-Bob, we as a fandom are neglecting the fact that Ford built an honest-to-God shrine to Bill, which he neglected to take down even after coming back through the portal 30 years later. Ford left the shrine up. Ford came back through the portal, beat up and traumatized and ready to fight. And he walked past the shrine to Bill, and he did not destroy it. He did not paint over it. He did not tear it down. He left it standing. Whatever Bill was to him, whatever Bill is to him, that thing is not over. That is what the dream is telling us. Wendy's dream. Wendy dreams about her mom. This one hits the fandom hardest because the show almost never talked about it. Wendy Corduroy is one of the most beloved characters in Gravity Falls. She is cool, she is chill, she is the older girl Dipper has a crush on. She works at the Mystery Shack. She has a chaotic but loving relationship with her dad, Manly Dan, and her brothers, but the show never tells us where her mother is. The book confirms what fans had whispered about for years. Wendy's mom is gone. Wendy's mom has been gone for a long time. Wendy dreams about her because Wendy still misses her. Wendy is not actually as chill as she pretends. Wendy is performing the chill for everyone around her, especially her dad, because if she stops performing it, the whole house falls apart. The Corduroy family is held together by a teenage girl pretending nothing hurts. Bill saw it. Bill wrote it down. Bill keeps it in his book because if he ever gets out, that is the lever he would pull on Wendy first. The fandom on Reddit had whole threads about this when the book dropped. People who watched Gravity Falls as kids and then lost a parent themselves came back to Wendy with new eyes. The same girl who taught Dipper how to face his fears was carrying a private grief the show never had the room to show. Bill knew. Bill always knew. Bill keeps a list. Dipper's dream. Dipper nightmares about a fight between his parents he was not supposed to hear. This one is small. This one is the kind of thing that happens to every kid in a house with adults who try to keep things together. Dipper Pines, 12 years old, hero of the show, dreams about a fight between his mom and his dad, a fight he overheard. A fight he was not supposed to be in the room for. A fight that probably did not even feel like a big deal to his parents, but felt like the world ending to him. The fandom reading on this one is that the Pines' parents back in California are not having a great time. Dipper and Mabel are away for a whole summer with their great uncle in Oregon, who they did not even know existed before that summer. Why is that exactly? Why send your twins 5 states away to a man who runs a tourist trap? Maybe because home is not a great place right now. Maybe because the parents need a break. Maybe because the parents need to figure something out that they cannot figure out with the kids in the house. The show never tells us. The book never tells us either. The book just gives us this Dipper, in his sleep, hearing his parents fight. Dipper, the kid who solves every mystery in town, never solving the mystery of his own family. Bill putting that on the page like it is a recipe for what kind of cookie Dipper likes. Casual, clinical, cruel. Stanley's dream. Stanley dreams about high school and his brother trapped in a science fair experiment. Now we get to Stan, Grunkle Stan, the brother who got pushed away, the brother who broke the science project, the brother who got kicked out of the house, the brother who spent 30 years pretending to be his twin so he could keep the lights on and bring his real brother home. Stan dreams about high school. Stan dreams about Ford trapped in a science experiment. The fandom read this 2 ways. The first read is the obvious one. Stan dreams about the day he ruined Ford's science fair project. The day his glove caught the corner of the perpetual motion machine. The day he knocked it over and shattered it, and lost Ford his ticket to West Coast Tech, and changed the course of both their lives. A Tale of Two Stans made this the central wound of the whole Stan twin storyline. Stan never forgave himself. Stan dreamed about it every night for 40 years. Stan is dreaming about it still. The second read is darker. Stan dreams about Ford trapped in a science fair experiment. Not just the broken machine. Trapped, stuck inside, like a specimen, like a frog in a jar. Stan's nightmare is not just that he broke Ford's project. Stan's nightmare is that he watched his brother disappear into a machine in their basement, and there was nothing he could do about it for 30 years. Both events smashed together into one looping dream. The science fair becomes the portal. The portal becomes the science fair. Stan's brain cannot separate them. Stan has spent his whole life trying to pull Ford back out of a machine he never built. And the dream is the loop he cannot escape. Bill puts this in the book like it is a fun fact. Bill, the demon who manipulated Ford into building the portal in the first place, knows that the same machine he tricked Ford into is the same machine Stan's whole life has been organized around. Bill engineered the worst nightmare in the Pines family on purpose. Bill kept the receipt. Robbie's dream. Robbie dreams about his original hair color. This one is funny on the surface. Robbie Valentino, the teenage goth boy who dates Wendy in season 1 and gets dumped. The kid with the long black hair and the eyeliner dreams about his original hair color. The implication is that the hair is dyed. The implication is that Robbie's whole goth identity is a costume. The implication is that somewhere under the black hair and the black hoodie is a kid with a totally different look who put the costume on one day in 8th grade and never took it off. The fandom did not need much encouragement to run with this. Robbie's parents in the show are extremely upbeat undertakers. Cheerful funeral home owners. They are the opposite of goth. Robbie is the rebellion against his parents. Robbie is the kid who decided his whole personality would be the opposite of what his cheerful, death-positive mom and dad wanted. And the costume worked. Robbie became the goth kid. Robbie became the boyfriend Wendy was embarrassed by. Robbie became the loser in the love triangle with Dipper. But in his sleep, Robbie is just a kid with whatever color hair he was born with, trying to remember who he was before he started the bit. Bill writing this down is Bill telling the reader, I see the costume on every one of you. I know what is underneath. I can pull the costume off anytime I want. Old Man McGucket's dream. Old Man McGucket, a mind that was collapsing with decades of memories missing. We talked about Fiddleford in the last section. The book comes back to him in the dreams chapter and twists the knife. Bill describes McGucket's dream as a mind that is collapsing. Decades of memories simply gone. Holes where pieces of a life used to be. Fiddleford does not even get a coherent nightmare. Fiddleford gets static. Fiddleford gets a slow erosion. Fiddleford is what happens when a human being uses the memory gun on themselves too many times and never quite comes back. Bill is, of course, the reason for all of this. Bill is the reason Fiddleford built the gun. Bill is the reason Fiddleford had something to forget. Bill describing the collapsing mind in the dreams chapter. Is Bill admiring his own handiwork? The fandom hates this passage. The fandom loves it. The The fandom argues about whether Bill is showing remorse here, hidden under the cruelty, or whether he is just showing off again. The line could go either way. Most of the lines in this book can go either way. That is the whole trick, the mindscape itself. The Dreams chapter also gives us a tour of the mindscape as Bill experiences it. The black void with the floating clocks and the impossible shapes. The place Bill lived before he had a body. The place Bill still lives now in the Theraprism when he closes his one eye. The mindscape in the show is what Bill brought Stan and Gideon into during Dreamscapers. It is also where Dipper and Mabel chase Stan's memories around to save him. It looks like a black space with floating doors. Each door leads into a memory. The doors can be locked, the memories can be protected. But Bill, in his book, brags that he can pick any lock. He brags that no door in the mindscape is really closed to him. He says he has been in everyone's heads in Gravity Falls at one time or another, even when they did not feel him there. This is one of the more chilling passages in the book, because the show framed Bill as a creature who could only enter your mind if you let him in. The Book of Bill walks that back. Bill could enter the mindscape of anyone in the town anytime he wanted. He just chose not to make himself visible most of the time. He chose to lurk. He chose to watch. He chose to write down what he saw and keep it in his book. The whole population of Gravity Falls has been observed by a sleeping demon their entire lives, and they did not know it, and they could not have stopped it. This is the part that loops back to the show's title sequence. The hidden triangle in the trees. The brick eye in the window. The rug pattern. The figurines on the shelf. Every one of those background details is now, in light of the book, a sign that Bill was there. Bill was there in episode 1. Bill was there in episode 2. Bill was there in the gas station in the cold open of The Tooth. Bill was floating in the mindscape of every dreaming character, taking notes, building his file. The show is, in retrospect, a documentary about a stalker. And the book is the stalker's notebook. Reality is an illusion. Right after the Dreams chapter, Bill drops the line, "The fandom turned into a meme." Bill reveals secrets about the universe. Reality is an illusion, and the universe is a hologram. Reality is an illusion, the universe is a hologram. Buy gold, buy. This is the line from the show, from Weirdmageddon Part 1. From the moment Bill physically enters the third dimension and stretches his arms out and laughs and tells the citizens of Gravity Falls what he really thinks of their reality. The book repeats it, but the book gives it a context the show never did. In the book, Bill explains what he means by reality is an illusion. He means the third dimension is not the real one. He means there are higher dimensions on top of this one. He means the people of our world walk around thinking they are solid, and that is also a lie. He means we are projections, the same way he was a projection from his flat world. He means somewhere in a higher dimension, there is something looking down on us, the same way he looked down on Euclidia. He means there is a fourth dimension that watches us bump around endlessly in our three-dimensional plane, and to those beings we look as flat and ridiculous, as Euclideans look to him. This is the philosophical core of the Book of Bill. The fandom calls it the cosmic horror passage. Because if Bill is right, if reality really is an illusion, and the universe really is a hologram, then everything Bill did to Euclidia, somebody could do to us. Some higher dimensional being could decide to free our minds and show us the fourth dimension, and we would all come apart in fire. The same way Bill's parents came apart. The same way Bill's neighbors came apart. The same way the eye doctor came apart. And Bill in the book hints that this is exactly what he wanted Weirdmageddon to do to us. He wanted to free us. He wanted to show us up. He wanted to give us his vision, his curse, his sky. He calls it a gift. He thinks he was being generous. He thinks the Pines family stopped him from giving humanity the greatest present in history. And the fandom reads this passage with their stomach in a knot, because if you let Bill talk long enough, he almost makes the apocalypse sound like a favor. He almost makes you believe he meant well. He almost gets you. And the story that emerges is rather heartbreaking. Bill was born in a two-dimensional universe, Euclidia, to genuinely loving parents. But he wasn't normal. He could see a third dimension, and in his attempts to get his family to see what he could, he destroyed his home, not out of malice, but ignorance. And he's haunted by their loss. He still hears their screams. That is the trap of the book. That is the trap of the dreams chapter. That is the trap of the whole project. Bill is asking you to feel sorry for him. Bill is asking you to forgive him. Bill is asking you, page by page, to like him. And if you like him, you might shake the statue's hand at the end. And if you shake the statue's hand, well, we will get to that. The trolley problem. There is a section in the book where Bill goes through philosophy. He calls it his guide to everything. He talks about morality. He talks about parallel dimensions. He talks about love. He talks about possession. He talks about the trolley problem. Bill digs into the trolley problem, makes a case for possession being a good thing, and invites readers to give him access to their minds. The trolley problem in Bill's version is a joke. He says you should always pull the lever. You should always pick the option that lets the most people die. Because death is funny. Because death is freedom. Because nobody is real anyway. He says possession is good because if a demon takes over your body, you get a vacation, you get to rest. You get to let someone else do the driving for a while. It is, in his words, basically a spa day for your soul. Then he invites the reader to let him into their mind. He tells you exactly how to summon him. The exclusive content is found after Bill's head collection and before the dreams chapter, called More Secrets. The pages begin with Bill providing a guide on various ways to summon him. The Barnes & Noble exclusive edition has even more of this. 16 extra pages on how to bring Bill back. Where to stand, what to chant, what direction to face, what to hold, what to give up. Step-by-step instructions for the apocalypse. The fandom freaked out about this when the book came out. There was a real conversation on Reddit and Tumblr and in YouTube comment sections about whether saying the chants out loud was a bad idea, whether reading them was enough to count, whether the joke of saying the words was, in a small way, agreeing with the deal. The book is designed to make you feel that paranoia. The book is designed to make you wonder if you have already messed up. The book is designed to make you read the next page anyway. And the next page is where Bill makes his case for love. Bill, the trillion-year-old grief demon, with a chapter on dating tips. We will start there, because it is where the book gets, somehow even stranger. Bill's Guide to Love. There is a chapter in the book of Bill where Bill, the genocidal dream demon, gives the reader dating advice. He then discusses humans and how disgusting the human body is. He then goes into detail about love and shares his thoughts on it and tips to dating. The fandom calls this the Dating Tips chapter, and the Dating Tips chapter is one of the funniest and saddest sections in the whole book. Bill opens by telling the reader that the human body is disgusting. He goes through it part by part. He calls eyes wet marbles. He calls hair dead protein strings. He calls mouths food holes. He calls hands grabbing meat hooks. He cannot believe humans walk around in these wet, soft, dripping bodies all day, and then try to find other humans to share them with. He thinks the whole concept of physical attraction is absurd. He thinks bodies are gross. Then he flips. Then he says, "But you fragile little meat sacks keep trying anyway? So let me give you some advice." His advice is terrible. He says things like, if your partner annoys you, possess them and fix them yourself. He says things like, if you do not know what to say on a date, just lie. He says things like, the secret to a happy relationship is never letting the other person see who you really are. He says things like, all love is a deal. Every kiss is a contract. Every promise is a trap. He says these things with the rhythm of a self-help book, like he is genuinely trying to help. He says these things with little illustrations of human couples that have been crossed out and replaced with him. The fandom looks at this chapter and reads it as Bill talking about Ford. Ford isn't some unfeeling robot powered solely by knowledge. He has human needs. He was lonely enough to summon a demon for companionship. Every piece of dating advice Bill gives is a thing he did to Ford. Lie. Manipulate. Possess. Never let them see who you are. Make every promise a trap. The chapter is secretly a confession of every move Bill ever made. In the relationship he refuses to call a relationship. And underneath the cynicism, underneath the disgust, the fandom finds Bill's loneliness sitting there in plain sight. A creature who has spent a trillion years being the worst possible partner to every patron he ever had. Writing a dating guide because somewhere in the part of him that is still a flat little boy, He wishes someone had loved him back. The eye doctor did not love him. His parents tried and died trying. The Oracle saw him for what he was and ran. Ford figured it out and built a metal plate to keep him out. Every connection Bill ever had ended with him being seen too clearly and rejected. So he writes a chapter on love and pretends he is teaching the reader something. He is not teaching, he is grieving. The fandom calls this the saddest joke in the book, the game of how you will die. After the dating tips, Bill puts a game on the page. Following a game of how the reader will die, Bill discusses morality and parallel dimensions. The game is exactly what it sounds like. A choose-your-own-adventure flowchart that walks the reader through different scenarios and ends in every branch with the reader dead. Some branches are slow, some are fast, some are funny, some are horrible. There is no path through the chart that leaves you alive. The fandom traced every branch the week the book dropped. There are about 30-odd endings depending on which version of the book you have, and they get worse the deeper you dig. The cleanest branches are silly. You eat a bad burrito and die. You fall off a roof and die. You meet a goat that knows your name and die. The deeper branches are nastier. You read a book that has Bill's face on the cover and die. You say his name 3 times in a mirror and die. You shake hands with a statue in the woods and die. That last one is the punchline of the whole game, of course. The whole flowchart, dozens of branches, every possible death the reader could imagine, all of them collapse down to one of 2 outcomes. Either you die without ever meeting Bill, in which case Bill never gets out, or you die because you let Bill in which case you have already done the one thing he needed you to do. The game is the trap dressed up as a quiz. The game is Bill telling the reader, in the friendliest possible voice, that there is no way to read this book and not end up either useless to him or useful to him. He gets you either way. The fandom loves this section because it is the Book of Bill in miniature. Every page is a choose-your-own-adventure where every path ends in his hand. The book is a flowchart. The reader is the variable. The exit is the same in every branch. Morality and parallel dimensions. The death game leads into the morality section. Bill, the demon who killed a dimension, has thoughts on right and wrong. He thinks right and wrong are made up. He thinks they are tools the strong use to keep the weak in line. He thinks if you can do something, you should, and you should not feel bad about it afterward. But the fandom looks at the color cipher running through this section and finds something different underneath. The color cipher in the morality pages is one of the longest in the book. When decoded, it reads, "In pieces, our boy." Our boy. He does not believe what he is writing. He does not believe what he is writing. He says these things because he cannot stand to face what he did. Help him. Help him. Help him. That is Scalene and Euclid again. That is his parents from inside his own mind, leaking through the color cipher to tell the reader that everything Bill is saying about morality is a coping mechanism. He has to believe right and wrong are made up, because if right and wrong are real, then he is the worst being in the universe. He is the boy who killed his own mother. He is the boy who killed his own father. He is the boy who killed every neighbor and every friend and every classmate he ever had. He cannot live with that. So he tells the reader the rules do not apply. He tells the reader morality is a joke. He tells himself too, through Bill's voice. Every page, every paragraph. And his dead parents tell him in colors he cannot read, but the reader can, that they know what he is doing. And they wish he would stop. The fandom reading on this is that Bill's parents are not haunting him for revenge. The fandom reading is that Bill's parents are still trying to mother him. They are still trying to comfort their son. They are still trying to pull him home. And he is still running. Despite their deaths, they still speak through Bill somehow in their language. With implications they are still somehow alive inside of Bill, while warning the reader about him in the Book of Bill, as well as trying to talk sense into their son over his actions. The parallel dimensions passage that follows is more practical. Bill explains how the multiverse actually works. He talks about which dimensions are stable. He talks about which dimensions have been destroyed. He mentions in passing dimensions where the Pines family never met. Dimensions where Stan died as a kid. Dimensions where Ford married Fiddleford. Dimensions where Dipper and Mabel never came to Gravity Falls. Dimensions where Bill himself won, and the world is a giant flat pancake, and everyone is screaming forever. He drops these like throwaway lines. He treats them like trivia. The fandom treats them like canon. Every parallel mentioned, even in one sentence, has spawned hundreds of fanfictions on Archive of Our Own. Hirsch knows what he is doing. He drops one line and lets the fandom build the city. The urban legends. After morality, Bill moves into urban legends. He then discusses various urban legends. This is the chapter where Bill takes credit for a lot of weird things in the world that the show never quite explained. He claims credit for several disappearances. He claims credit for the missing time in certain rural towns. He claims credit for the cryptids in the woods of Gravity Falls, the multi-bear from Dipper vs. Manliness, the unicorns from The Last Mabelcorn, the lake monster from The Legend of the Gobblewonker. Bill says some of these were his idea. Some of them came from his henchmaniacs. Some of them are leftovers from previous attempts to break into the third dimension. The town of Gravity Falls is weird because Bill made it weird. The town is the way it is because before MODOK sealed him in, Bill had decades of unsealed access to that one geographic spot. The land remembered. The land kept the magic. The land became a magnet for every other weird thing in the world. This explains in lore terms why every supernatural creature in the show is concentrated in one Oregon town. It is not coincidence, it is leakage. Bill spent enough time near Gravity Falls in the prehistoric past that he broke the lid on reality there. He cracked the seal. He let the weird in. Even after MODOK locked him out, the weird stayed, because reality once cracked does not heal back. That is a Bill line in the book. Reality once cracked does not heal back. The fandom takes this as canon now. Every cryptid, every gnome, every gremloblin, every hide-behind, every floating eyeball bat is a downstream consequence of Bill's first visit. Gravity Falls is not just a town with a Bill problem. Gravity Falls is the scar tissue from Bill's first crime in the third dimension. The town is, in a way, his bruise, and the Pines family lives on top of the bruise. The Silly Straws chapter. We have already touched on the Silly Straws chapter, but it deserves its own section here. Because it is where the Book of Bill does its most brutal sleight of hand, Bill then has an entire page dedicated to the discussion of silly straws and reveals what happens if the reader rejects his deal at the start. On the surface, the Silly Straws chapter is a chapter on silly straws. Bill spends a whole spread talking about how much he loves the way silly straws bend, how they spiral, how they twist, how they fold back on themselves. He talks about flavors. He talks about colors. He talks about how a silly straw can make even tap water feel like a treat. He spends the page in the rhythm of a man writing a love letter to a children's drinking apparatus. The reader, by this point in the book, has been told there are no codes. Bill swore it a few chapters ago. Bill said cross his heart. So the reader is encouraged to flip past the Silly Straws chapter and laugh and move on. The fandom did not move on. The fandom found the codes. The Silly Straw page, which looks like silly nonsense until you decipher some of the codes. Eye doctor of a different kind, Delibate HO wants to make his patients blind. The doctor says 3 sips a day will make the visions go away. The codes on the Silly Straws page are, when decoded, the memories of Bill's medical childhood in Euclidia. We covered the eye doctor lines in chunk 1. 3 sips a day will make the visions go away. The eye doctor of a different kind, who wants to make his patients blind. The Silly Straws are not silly. The Silly Straws are medicine droppers. The Silly Straws are the prescription Bill was given as a child to stop him from seeing the third dimension. The whole chapter is Bill writing a love letter to the thing that traumatized him. The fandom calls this the worst kind of dissociation. He cannot face what the Silly Straws actually were, so he writes a tribute to them in his cheerful voice, and the truth bleeds out through the cipher he claimed did not exist. There is a deeper layer on this page too. Some hidden codes on the book's page on Silly Straws even indicate that he was medicated to prevent him from seeing it. However, while he views himself as superior to the other people of his dimension, it doesn't seem that he destroyed his dimension in an attempt at revenge. Rather, he states that he wanted to show them what he saw. The Silly Straws page is also where the official lore admits, in code, that Bill did not destroy Euclidia out of hate. He destroyed it out of evangelism. He wanted to share. He wanted to teach. He wanted to convert his parents and his neighbors and his eye doctor and his classmates to the gospel of the third dimension. He wanted them to drink from the silly straw and see. And when they died, he could not face what he had done. So he flipped it, so he made himself the villain. So he started saying out loud and proud that he had freed them, that they were grateful, that he had given them a gift. Bill snapped from the guilt and convinced himself he liberated it. The fandom calls this the most heartbreaking lore detail in the entire book. Bill is not a monster who enjoys being a monster. Bill is a child who killed everyone he loved by accident and could not survive being the person who did that. So he became a monster on purpose as a way to stop being the child. The Book of Bill is, from end to end, the diary of a haunted person who built an apocalypse out of the grief he could not metabolize. And the silly straws are the receipt. What happens if you refuse the deal? The Silly Straws page also reveals, in coded form, what happens if the reader rejects Bill's deal at the start of the book. The first few pages of the Book of Bill offer the reader a deal. Bill asks you to keep reading. Bill asks you to agree to his terms. Bill puts a little signature line on the page. If you sign, you proceed. If you do not sign, what happens? Bill then has an entire page dedicated to the discussion of silly straws and reveals what happens if the reader rejects his deal at the start. The Silly Straws chapter, Decoded, tells you, if you reject the deal, the book ends not just for you, for the book itself. The pages would, in Bill's framing, go blank. The book would close. The cursed object would lose its grip on the world. The reader would walk away unscathed. Bill would stay trapped in the Theraprism forever, because no one read the book and no one shook the statue. The catch, of course, is that nobody who picks up a book called the Book of Bill is going to refuse the deal. Bill knows this. Bill knew it when he wrote the book. Bill knew that anyone curious enough to pick up the thing is curious enough to keep reading. The whole opening sequence with the Ford letter and the warnings is part of the trap. The warnings make you want to read more. The warnings are advertising. Ford telling you not to turn the page is the most effective marketing ever printed. So the Silly Straws chapter in code tells you that the way out exists. The way out has always existed. The way out is to put the book down, and then it watches you keep reading. The heads on the shelf again. Right before the Theraprism reveal, Bill loops back to the heads. He shows them to you one more time. He walks past the shelf again. He names a few of the heads we did not get names for the first time. He laughs about them. He calls them his trophies. He calls them his friends. He calls them his family. He says with no irony at all that this is the family he chose after the family he was born with did not work out. This is the most chilling moment in the book for some readers. Bill sitting in a padded cell outside of space and time, surrounded by jars full of dead heads, calls them his family. He is not joking. He is not entirely joking. Anyway, the fandom reads this as the closest Bill gets to admitting he is alone. The fandom reads this as the loneliest sentence in the whole book, and the heads do not answer him. The heads cannot answer him. The heads are dead. The shelf is silent, Bill. The demon who collected 100 patrons over 100 centuries is sitting in a cell talking to jars. He has the book. He has his hat. He has his dead father's hat. He has nothing else. That is when the book starts to turn. That is when the tone shifts. That is when we get to the chapter that explains where Bill actually is right now, what happened to him after Weirdmageddon Part 3, Take Back the Falls, and why he is publishing this confession at all. That is when we walk into Bill's final fate. That is when we meet the axolotl. And before we do, we have to back up one more time, because Bill cannot just walk into the axolotl section. He has to relive the moment Stan punched him. He has to relive the moment his body cracked. He has to relive the moment he stopped being a god and started being a fugitive. The book walks him backwards into that moment, and us with him, and it is one of the strangest sequences in the whole volume. The punch that ended everything. The Book of Bill walks us into the final moments of Weirdmageddon Part 3, Take Back the Falls. We have seen this scene in the show. We have seen the Pines twins corner Bill. We have seen Bill enter Stan's mind. thinking he was entering Ford's. "We have seen the trick." Stan and Ford swapped clothes. Stan put on the trench coat. Ford put on the Mr. Mystery suit. Bill saw the trench coat and went for the brain inside, and the brain inside was the one brain in Gravity Falls that did not have the knowledge Bill wanted. And the brain inside was the one brain that was willing to let itself be erased to take Bill down with it, all for nothing. His plans to take over the entire world were completely thwarted once he realized that he foolishly entered Stan's mind instead of Ford's, who holds the knowledge about escaping from Gravity Falls. When Stan willingly lets his mind be erased, all Bill can do now is to gravely panic and desperately plead for his life, right up until he meets his maker in the hands of Stan himself. The Book of Bill is, for once, honest about this moment. Bill writes it almost as it happened. Bill admits he panicked. Bill admits he begged. Bill admits he tried to make a deal with Stan, with Ford, with anyone, even as the memory gun fired and his body started to crack. Bill tries to spin the moment as a tactical retreat, but the fandom can see through it. He was scared. He thought he was dying. He thought it was over. And then, in the moment between Stan's fist landing and his body shattering, Bill said one word. He invoked the axolotl. The show told us this in code, way back in the cold open of Weirdmageddon Part 1. Bill, in a moment alone, whispers a chant. The chant ends with the line, "Axolotl, my time has come to burn. I invoke the ancient power that I may return." Fans spent 8 years arguing about what that meant. Was it a backup plan? Was it a death rattle? Was it canon or just a hint? Epiphanic prison. This is revealed to be Bill's final fate. After invoking the axolotl's name just before Stanley kills him, Bill Cipher is allowed an audience with the top god. The Book of Bill answers it. The chant worked. The axolotl heard. And in the half-second before Stan's mind was wiped clean, Bill's spirit, broken and cracked and bleeding starlight, was pulled out of Stan's head and into a place outside of time. He met the axolotl, and the axolotl listened. The audience with the top god. The axolotl is the closest thing Gravity Falls has to a god. The axolotl is one of the 3 overarching protagonists of Disney's Gravity Falls franchise. It is a massively powerful and ancient cosmic being that is worshipped throughout the multiverse as a force of goodness and order, capable of restoring people to life and giving out knowledge unknown to anybody. It is older than Bill. It is older than the Henchmoniacs. It is older than the Oracle. It is older than every dimension we have seen so far. It is a salamander, a frilly-headed pink amphibian floating in a tank that exists outside of all things. The Oracle prays to it. Jesselbraum's house, when Ford visited her on the mountain, was full of drawings of the axolotl. The fandom worked out years ago that the Oracle worships this being and that the being is the ultimate authority in the Gravity Falls multiverse. When Bill is pulled into its presence, the axolotl does not look angry. It does not look surprised. It looks tired, the way the fandom has always read it, like it has been waiting for Bill for a very long time. Like it knew exactly when this conversation was going to happen. Upon summoning the axolotl to escape death, Bill Cipher inadvertently makes a contract with it to be stuck inside the Theraprism, a prism-shaped dimension where people can only leave after they've sorted out their woes and personal issues, and above all, repent for their wrongdoings. The book draws this scene in stark white and pale pink. Bill is a shattered triangle, broken into pieces, hovering in a void. The axolotl is a soft pink glow around him. The axolotl speaks in verse, "When confronting the axolotl, Bill is broken." The axolotl even notes this. Shattered, broken, not yet dead. That is the line the axolotl opens with. It is not a question, it is a diagnosis. The god is looking at Bill and naming what Bill is. Not killed, not destroyed, not erased, shattered, broken, not yet dead. Then the axolotl offers Bill a deal. The fandom on Tumblr has dissected this scene for over a year. The axolotl says it will let Bill be reincarnated. It will let him have another life. It will let him exist again on one condition. The axolotl allows him a second chance at life via reincarnation on one condition. Bill atones for the crimes he committed in this life through the axolotl's trial. Bill, of course, says yes immediately. Bill, however, fakes remorse, and agrees to the deal before fully hearing the details of his hardest trial? Thinking he had successfully tricked the axolotl into an easy resurrection, he would soon discover just how difficult this trial would be. He thinks he has tricked a god. He thinks the salamander is a sucker. He thinks all he has to do is fake some tears, mumble some apologies, and he will be back in the third dimension within an hour. He agrees to the deal before he hears what the trial is. That is a Bill mistake. That is the kind of mistake Bill himself has been laughing at humans for making for 1 trillion years. He used to brag that humans signed his contracts without reading them. Now, in the moment that matters most, he signs a contract without reading it. The axolotl tells him what the trial is, and Bill realizes too late that he has been outplayed. The Theraprism. Thus, the axolotl banishes Bill to the facility it thinks he needs the most. The Theraprism, a mental health institute located outside of space and time. The Theraprism is, on its face, a hospital, a psychiatric facility, a rehab center for cosmic beings. The axolotl runs it. The axolotl is the head doctor. The patients are the worst of the worst from across the multiverse. This trial turns out to be an inescapable reformatory prison called the Theraprism, where the souls of the very worst of the worst are kept until they finally and sincerely atone for their misdeeds in life, whereupon they reincarnate into a simpler form of life. Bill, who expected to fight a battle, gets a therapy room instead. He expected swords. He gets group sessions. He expected blood. He gets art supplies. He expected an enemy he could outwit. He gets a counselor who looks at him with infinite patience and says, "When you are ready, we will talk about your mother." The Book of Bill has a series of pages near the end set inside the Theraprism. They are illustrated like security footage. Bill in an orange jumpsuit. Bill in a padded white room. Bill surrounded by other inmates. 3 pictures of Bill in the Theraprism. The first one shows him holding his hand against the side of his head in a dazed expression, sitting in a chair in a white padded room between a wizard, with a clock for a face and Saturn, taken directly from the painting, Saturn devouring his son. The second is a camera recording of him wearing an orange jumpsuit and kneeling in a cell, surrounded by arts and crafts tools, holding a pair of scissors and beaming his thoughts frantically into a book. The fandom went feral over those panels. The wizard with a clock for a face is the Time Baby in his older, defeated form, or a being a lot like him. The figure that looks like Saturn devouring his son from the famous Goya painting is another patient. The Theraprism is full of cosmic horrors who have done terrible things. Bill is just one of them. Bill is in the cosmic order of bad people, somewhere in the middle of the pack. He is not even the worst inmate in his own ward. The fandom loves this detail. The fandom loves that Bill, who thought he was the biggest threat in the universe, is roommates with worse things than himself. The arts and crafts loophole. Here's where the Book of Bill explains its own existence. Here's where the framing device finally clicks shut. Bill is in the Theraprism. The axolotl has him in therapy. The axolotl is patient. The axolotl is willing to wait 1,000 years, 1,000,000 years, however long it takes for Bill to genuinely face what he did to Euclidia and feel remorse for it. The axolotl is, in cosmic terms, never going to give up on him. The axolotl, noting Bill's misdeeds, instead sentences Bill to an eternity of therapy in hopes of making him redeem himself, infuriating the demon and leading to the events of the Book of Bill being his attempt at escaping punishment. Bill cannot stand this. Bill wants out. Bill cannot face what he did. Bill needs another way. So in his therapy sessions, in the part of the day reserved for arts and crafts, Bill starts making a book. A new poem from the axolotl reveals Bill has been sent to a neutral zone in dimension 5150, called the Theraprism, which is outside of time. There, he is undergoing mandatory therapy to try and rehabilitate him. The Theraprism apologizes to the reader, saying Bill managed to contact them through an arts and crafts project where he made the book, which is a violation of their rules against outside contact. They give Bill 5 minutes to finish telling his story, and then will confiscate his book. The Book of Bill is the arts and crafts project. The Book of Bill is the loophole. Bill, sitting in his cell with scissors and glue and crayons, beams his thoughts into the pages and writes the whole thing. He cannot escape the Theraprism with his body. He cannot escape with his mind, but he can escape with a book. He can write a book and find a way to push it through the wall of the prism. The book, once pushed through, becomes a transmission. It is a message in a bottle. It is a flare from a lifeboat. It is a please come find me. Please get me out. Please believe me. Please help me. Please, please, please. Stanford Pines, on the other side, gets the book. He recognizes it for what it is. He understands that Bill is alive. He understands that the book is the evidence, and he tries to destroy it. He fails. He throws it through the rift. Callback. Ford states he planned to discard the Book of Bill into the dimensional rifts they were fixing in Lost Legends. This is not a webcitate.com revealed. He instead disposed of it via the bottomless pit, as he did Journal 3, explaining how it wound up in the reader's hands. The book leaves the Gravity Falls universe. The book arrives in our universe. The book sits on your shelf, or in your hand, or under your pillow. That is the conceit. That is the trick. The Book of Bill is not just a book about Bill. The Book of Bill is Bill's escape attempt. Every reader who picks the book up, who reads it, who turns the pages, is unknowingly the next mark in the longest con of Bill's life. Bill is trying to get out of cosmic prison by writing a memoir that recruits readers. He needs one of those readers to walk into the woods of Gravity Falls, find the statue, and shake the hand. Just one. Just one reader in any universe, in any timeline, in any version of reality. That is all it would take. The Theraprism catches on. The Axolotl runs the Theraprism. The Axolotl has staff. The staff are not stupid. The Theraprism apologizes to the reader, saying Bill managed to contact them through an arts and crafts project where he made the book, which is a violation of their rules against outside contact. They give Bill 5 minutes to finish telling his story, and then will confiscate his book. Near the end of the book, the staff figures out what Bill is doing. They notice the arts and crafts project is more than crayons and scissors. They notice the energy he is putting into it. They notice the way the cell is humming. They walk in, they see the book on the floor, they see what he has written, and they tell him he has 5 minutes. The last few pages of the Book of Bill are written under this 5-minute warning. Bill knows the book is about to be taken. Bill knows the message is about to be cut off. Bill scribbles faster. Bill drops the act. Bill finally comes clean and admits he's stuck in the prism. He states that despite it all, he's not changed and never will. He wants someone to break him out through the help of the book. But in the end, we are just like the rest who refuse to help. This is the most honest moment in the entire Book of Bill. The trickster runs out of time. The lies fall off. He admits he is stuck. He admits he is not coming out unless someone helps him. He admits he is not going to change. He admits the whole book has been a sales pitch, a plea, a manipulation. He admits that he is exactly the same monster he was during Weirdmageddon. He admits there is no version of him in there that has learned a lesson. And then he asks the reader, one more time, for help. He asks the reader to find the statue. He asks the reader to shake the hand. He asks the reader to break him out. He asks for it. He begs for it. He frames it as a favor between friends. He calls the reader his only hope. And the fandom, reading this passage, hears how desperate it is. The fandom feels what Bill cannot admit he feels. He is alone. He is in cosmic prison. He has nobody to talk to but a god he resents and other monsters he is roommates with. The fandom debate splits at this point. Some readers want to help. Some readers feel bad for him and would, if the statue were real, consider shaking the hand. Some readers want to throw the book into the fire. Some readers want to write a fan fiction where the statue is shaken and the Pines family has to fight all over again. And some readers, the ones the book wants most, finish the last page, close the cover, and immediately consider buying a second copy. Because the trick worked, because the loneliness worked, because the book worked. That is the Axolotl's nightmare, by the way. The Axolotl knew Bill might try this. The Axolotl knew Bill might be able to push a message out. The Axolotl probably let it happen. The fandom argues, as part of the therapy, let Bill try. Let Bill see if anyone is going to help him. Let Bill see, page by page, that nobody outside is shaking the statue. Let the silence be the lesson. Let Bill realize, slowly, that no one is coming. That is the cruelest possible therapy. The Axolotl is patient enough to play that game for 1,000,000 years. Bill is not patient enough to last a month. The fandom calls this the slow burn of the universe. The salamander god wins eventually just by waiting. The last words from the Theraprism, the last that is heard from Bill, shows that he has not changed and has no intention to ever. He denies having any regrets or remorse and repeatedly insists that he's fine. He says that one day someone will let him out with a shot of his statue, now buried in the woods and overgrown, glowing in the dark. The last few lines of the Book of Bill are Bill insisting he is fine. He is fine. He is fine. He is fine. He says it over and over. The fandom reads this as the most obvious lie in the book. Anyone who has to say they are fine 3 times in a row is not fine. Bill is not fine. Bill is shattered. Bill is breaking apart again after seeming to heal up earlier in the prism. In the last few pages, we see the scar is gone and the cracks are back, and even more of him is breaking away, including parts of his eye. It's especially bad in the last image, with even more pieces of him breaking away. The Tumblr fandom called this the most important detail in the whole book. Bill was beginning to heal in the Theraprism. The therapy was working. His body was scarring over. The cracks were closing. He was against his will starting to put himself back together. And then when he started writing the book, the healing reversed. The scars opened. The cracks came back. The pieces fell off again, bringing this back to his shattering. It's interesting to me that after entering the Theraprism, his body is scarring, which means it is healing. But then at the end, as he's signing off the book, he's shattered again, and looking even worse than he did when talking to the axolotl. When talking this over with a friend, they pointed out something that struck me. Bill does not want to heal. Healing means having to actually think through what happened. The fandom calls this Bill choosing to break himself again. He could heal. He could face Euclidia. He could face his parents. He could face what he did to Ford. He could do the work the axolotl is asking him to do. He could earn the reincarnation. He could get out the clean way. He refuses. He would rather stay broken. He would rather write a book and try to escape. He would rather scheme than feel. The book is the receipt of his refusal. Every page is Bill choosing the con over the healing. Every word is Bill picking the lie over the recovery. And the cracks get worse with every page he writes, because the universe knows what he is doing, and the universe will not let him heal while he is still trying to escape. The statue in the woods. The very last image in the Book of Bill is the statue. The book ends with a dark image of his statue somewhere in the woods of Gravity Falls as its eye starts glowing blue. We have seen this statue before. It is the famous one, the end credits scene of Weirdmageddon Part 3, Take Back the Falls. After Bill is defeated, after the apocalypse is undone, after the Pines family wins, the show pans out to the woods of Gravity Falls and shows us a stone statue. A statue of Bill, one arm raised, one hand outstretched, eye open, standing in the dirt where he was last alive, waiting. For 8 years, fans argued about that statue. Was it a teaser? Was it a real plot point? Was it just a creepy Easter egg? The revelation that Bill was given a second chance met the axolotl, and the fact that shaking his statue would indeed bring him back does ultimately confirm the previous not 100% canon claims of Bill's survival. Through him and importance of the statue, the Book of Bill confirms it. The statue is real. The statue is canon. The statue is the way out. If anyone, anywhere in our world, in his world, in any world, walks up to that statue and shakes its hand, Bill comes back. Not in his old body, not at full strength, but back, with access to the third dimension, with a chance to start over, with the ability to begin building toward Weirdmageddon all over again. The last page of the book shows the statue overgrown with moss. Vines have wrapped around it. The forest has tried to swallow it. A bird is perched on the outstretched hand. The eye of the statue, which had been blank stone for 8 years, is now glowing. The glow is blue, soft, patient, like a pilot light, like a heartbeat. Like a small piece of Bill is still in there waiting, and in the very corner of the image, almost too small to see, is a tiny detail, a footprint. A footprint in the dirt right next to the statue. Someone has been there recently, someone has been visiting, someone has been close enough to shake the hand, and has not yet. The book closes on that image. The book ends without an answer. Whose footprint? When? Why have they not shaken the hand? Is the statue still safe? Will someone come along tomorrow who is not as careful? The fandom has been arguing about this footprint for almost 2 years now. Theories range. We will get into them in the next section, because the book ends here, but the story does not. The story spills out into the tie-in website. The story spills out into the Barnes & Noble exclusive pages. The story spills out into the fan theories that have built a whole second canon around what happens next. And the axolotl in its tank outside of time watches the footprint with the same patient eyes it watched Bill with, because the axolotl is the only being in the multiverse who already knows whose footprint that is. And the axolotl, the fandom thinks, is fine with it. The axolotl, the fandom thinks, is letting the story play out, because the axolotl already knows how it ends. The website is not a website. After the Book of Bill came out in July of 2024, fans noticed a URL printed in tiny letters in the margins of one of the pages. The URL was thisisnottowebsite.com. The book's puzzles aren't exclusively restricted to ciphers. However, for instance, many of the book's barcodes scan through as snarky messages from Bill. The ISBN on the page pictured above, for instance, directs to how to self-publish a children's book. More notably, in the marginalia of the page, the text reads, "For more Bill Cipher press fun, visit thisisnottawebsite.com." At the time, that led to a password-protected page. For the first few weeks, that URL was a locked door. Visiting the address gave you a black screen with one line of green text asking for a password. Fans tried everything: Bill quotes, episode titles, character names, coordinates, birth dates. Nothing worked. The website sat there for weeks, locked, while the fandom hammered on it from every angle. Then one day the door opened. Eventually, thisisnottawebsite.com updated to grant visitors access to its current state. Mad scientist Fiddleford McGucket's laboratory, featuring a copy of the Book of Bill impaled on a dagger, and an antiquated computer with a glowing green prompt box. Clicking on some of the objects in the room pull up messages, but the core of the experience is McGucket's computer, as the glowing green text entry field responds to literally hundreds of responses. The website is a 3D room. The room is Fiddleford McGucket's laboratory. The room is full of detail: a workbench, a broken radio, a dusty corner, a bunch of weird machines, and right in the middle of the room on the workbench is the Book of Bill. The book is impaled by a long silver dagger. The dagger is pinning the book to the table so it cannot leave. Fiddleford, the man Bill thought he had ruined, is the warden again. The book is his prisoner. There is a computer on the workbench. The computer has a glowing green prompt. You can type anything into the prompt. The website is built to respond to literally hundreds of inputs, solutions to some of the ciphers from the Book of Bill work, but also references to the show, memes, and even hip new slang words might trigger a response. There is no full list, but the Gravity Falls wiki has a fairly robust list. Type in a solved cipher and the screen reveals a hidden image. Type in a character name and Fiddleford talks to you. Type in a meme and the system responds with a joke. Type in a piece of Gravity Falls trivia, and the system unlocks a secret poem. The fandom built whole spreadsheets cataloging every working keyword. A Reddit thread that started the week the site went live now has thousands of entries. This is where the rest of the Book of Bill lore lives. The book is the artifact. The website is the encyclopedia. Together they form the complete document, Vallis Cineris and the family photo. One of the most important keywords in the website is Vallis Cineris. The fandom worked this one out within days. Vallis Cineris is Latin for Valley of Ashes. When you type it into the prompt, the screen displays a photograph. Generation Xerox, typing in Vallis Cineris on thisisnotwebsite.com shows that one of Bill's parents had a top hat, just like him. The photograph is of Bill as a child. He is in a flat 2D world. He is standing with his parents. His mother Scalene is next to him. His father Euclid is next to her. And one of his parents, the father, is wearing the exact top hat that adult Bill wears in every Gravity Falls scene. But the best proof is that image from thisisnotallwebsite.com that you get when you type Vallis Cineris in the computer. It shows Bill Cipher as a child with his parents. This is the picture the fandom had been begging for since the book dropped. Confirmation, visual proof. Bill's hat is his dad's hat, the most iconic accessory in Gravity Falls. The thing every cosplayer puts on top of their Bill costume. The thing on the rug at the Mystery Shack, the thing in the title sequence, the thing on every piece of merchandise is a memento mori. Bill has been wearing his dead father's hat for 1 trillion years. He cannot take it off. He will not take it off. It is the only piece of his family he has left. The Valley of Ashes title says everything. Bill's home dimension is a Valley of Ashes now. The photograph is from before the ashes. The photograph is from before Bill's mutation got too loud. The photograph is from before everything went wrong. The little flat triangle in the picture is smiling. His parents are smiling. They are a family, they are happy, and the reader is looking at the last moment of happiness Bill ever had, before he killed them all. The fandom calls this the most important Easter egg in the entire Transmedia project. It transforms every previous Bill scene in Gravity Falls. Every time you watch Bill tip his hat now, you are watching a son tip his father's hat. Every time Bill flips it during a deal, he is using his dad as a prop. The book and the website together have rewritten 10 years of show watching. Seven Eyes confirms the Oracle theory. Another major keyword on the website is Seven Eyes. Also, if you type Seven Eyes, you get this photo. When you type it into the computer, it pulls up a photograph of the Oracle, not the Oracle Ford met on the mountain. The Oracle as she was before. The Oracle as one of Bill's henchmaniacs, pink-skinned, hooded, 7 eyes all glowing, standing in a group photo with Bill and the rest of the crew. The photo is the missing piece the fandom needed. We talked earlier about the scratched-out face in the Book of Bill. The book hinted that the Oracle was once on Bill's team. The book gave you a smudged outline and let you guess. The website with the right password gives you the picture. I finally got more information on the Oracle. Yes, I'm still doing research, and I got info so she was part of the henchmaniacs. But her thing was scribbled out. Well, if you put it together, it says, the smartest one figured out how seal dimensional portals. Got too smart. Who needs her too many eyes anyways? That is the password-protected description that comes with the photo. The Oracle was kicked out of the henchmaniacs because she got smart enough to lock the doors Bill was using to move between dimensions. She became a security risk. She became a threat to the whole operation. The fandom split on whether Bill kicked her out himself, whether the other henchmaniacs turned on her, or whether she walked out on her own. The website does not say. The website just gives you the photo and the scribbled out description and lets you fill in the rest. The fandom calls this the moment the Oracle's whole arc clicked into place. She went from background character in Journal 3 to one of the most important figures in the lore. She is the one who left Bill. She is the one who told humans how to stop him. She is the one who, the fandom believes, set up the chain of events that led to his defeat in Stan's mind. The seven-eyed prophetess on the mountain was not just a helper for Ford. She was a long-game revenge plot, pulling on threads Bill could not see. Time Baby knew. Another keyword on the website unlocks a passage about the Time Baby. Time Baby knows about Bill's past and tries to reason with him. The henchmaniacs don't know about Bill's past with his home dimension. The Time Baby in the show was a giant cosmic toddler who ruled time. He died on screen in Weirdmageddon Part 1, vaporized by Bill in the apocalypse. He was treated as a joke character in the show. Massive cosmic authority, sometimes throwing tantrums, sometimes giving orders, ultimately killed off in a single hand wave. The website tells us the Time Baby knew about Euclidia. The Time Baby knew what Bill did to his parents. The Time Baby had tried, at some point in the past, to reason with Bill, to talk him down, to get him to face what he had done. Bill refused, of course. Bill killed him during Weirdmageddon, partly because Time Baby was one of the few beings who could see through Bill's whole act, and the website confirms the henchmaniacs. Bill's own crew did not know. Pyronica did not know. Kryptos did not know. 8-Ball did not know. They followed Bill for centuries thinking he was a charismatic interdimensional rebel, not realizing they were standing next to a child who had killed his own dimension by accident and never recovered. The fandom calls this the most isolating Bill detail of all. The leader of the gang was the only one in the gang who knew what he actually was. He kept it secret even from the beings closest to him, especially from them, because if they knew, they might not follow him. Or worse, they might pity him. The Oracle figured it out. That is why she had to go. That is why she got the scratched out treatment in the book. 7 eyes see things other eyes miss. She looked at Bill long enough to see Euclidia in him, and the moment she saw it, she became a threat. The Northwest Affair. The website also drops a deeply petty bit of lore. That has nothing to do with Bill's cosmic backstory, and everything to do with how thoroughly the Book of Bill rewrites the small details of Gravity Falls. Happy Marriage Charade. The This Is Note a Website.com RAG reveals that, contrary to the show, Preston and Priscilla Northwest are in an unhappy marriage, and heavily implies they're both cheating on each other. In the show, Preston and Priscilla Northwest are the rich, snobby parents of Pacifica. They are presented in Northwest Mansion Mystery as a unified, awful, classist couple who terrorize their daughter and the town. They feel like a single villain unit. The website reveals they are not unified at all. They are a marriage held together by money and appearances. They both hate each other. They are both, the website implies, cheating on each other. The wealth, the parties, the family name, the whole Northwest Empire is a charade. This recontextualizes Pacifica. Pacifica in the show was a mean girl who turned out to have a sympathetic side. Her parents trained her to be cruel. Her parents controlled her with a little dinger bell. Her parents were the actual villains of her arc. Now we know her parents were not even loyal to each other. The mean girl was raised by 2 unhappy adults who hated each other and turned all their misery on their daughter. The fandom always thought Pacifica was sympathetic. The website makes the sympathy mandatory. It also explains why Pacifica grew up to be the only Northwest who actually seemed to care about other people. She had nothing to lose. The family was already broken. She might as well try to be better. The fandom loves this passage. The fandom rewrote a lot of Pacifica fanfiction after the website lore dropped. The Owl House crossover. The website confirms what the book hinted at. The Gravity Falls universe and the Owl House universe are connected. Bill tried to get several humans to build his portal, even seemingly meeting the Owl House's Philip Wittibane on the way, continuing the connection between the 2 shows, but grew truly close to Ford. There are keywords on the website that unlock images of Philip Wittibane. He is a young witch hunter. He has not yet become Emperor Belos. He is in the timeline of his own show, decades or centuries away, from being the genocidal Belos who terrorizes the Boiling Isles. And the Book of Bill places him in conversation with Bill Cipher. At some point in his early life, Curse Wittibane is a keyword. Typing it pulls up a downloadable Bill-themed Ouija board with Bill's face on it. The fandom has a field day with this. Both shows are about charismatic villains with empires. Both shows feature villains who started as flawed humans or beings with grievances, and ended as full-blown apocalypse threats. Both shows feature villains who survive their on-screen deaths in some form. The crossover lore confirms that Bill and Belos either knew each other, tried to work together, or simply moved through the same magical underworld at different times. The fandom builds entire alternate universe stories around this. Some have Belos as Bill's apprentice. Some have Belos as Bill's failed protege. Some have Belos as the one who got away. The official lore just nudges and lets the fans run. It also confirms the broader Disney villain web that fans had suspected for years. There are other shows on Disney with their own dark forces, and the universes have always been treated as separate, but the Book of Bill puts a wink in the margins. The multiverse Bill walks through, the website implies, is the same multiverse other shows are set in. Every Disney darkness is, in some way, drinking from the same well. The Anti-Bill Society and the Lucifer Joke. The website expands on the Anti-Cipher Society from the book. Bill Cipher is referred to as a demon, or even as Satan in other works. like the Book of Bill and its tie-in website, This Is Not How Website.com. Being called William Lucifer by the Anti-Bill Society and Lucifer Incarnate by McGucket. But he's really closer to an interdimensional eldritch abomination. The Anti-Cipher Society, in their early 1900s pamphlets, called Bill by the name William Lucifer. They literally thought he was Lucifer. They thought he was the devil himself. The website reveals their meeting minutes, their funding pleas, their hand-drawn pamphlets, their rituals to ward him off. They were a small group of victims who had stumbled into Bill's deals over their lives and had come back wrecked. They formed a support group that turned into an activist group, that turned into a conspiracy theory group that society then laughed at and forgot. Fiddleford McGucket, in his lab on the website, also calls Bill Lucifer Incarnate. Fiddleford is, by the end of the book and the website, the senior anti-Bill expert on Earth. He has access to all the lore. He has decoded most of the ciphers. He has the book pinned to his workbench, and he is convinced Bill is, functionally, the devil. Not metaphorically, literally. Or close enough that the difference does not matter. The fandom debate on this is whether the Gravity Falls universe has Christianity, or whether Lucifer is just the closest word in human language for what Bill actually is. The show always treated Bill as a demon, but never a religious demon. The book and website push him a little closer to the religious frame. The Anti-Bill Society treats him as Satan. Fiddleford treats him as Satan. The Theraprism treats him as a soul, not just a being. The Axolotl treats him as something that can be sentenced. There is, the fandom argues, a moral architecture to the Gravity Falls universe now, that the show only flirted with. Good and evil are real categories. Crimes are real crimes. Souls are real souls. The Axolotl is something like a god. The Theraprism is something like purgatory. Bill is something like the devil. The fandom calls this the theological turn of the Book of Bill, and the fandom is still arguing about whether they like it. The Daryl Confession. We have to come back to Daryl. We promised this in Chunk 1. The line on page 1 of the book from the cipher was Daryl. I figured out the cipher for the Book of Bill. The translation for page 1 is, even his lies are lies, and the others with this code are, if lost, return to Bill, my optometrist never saw it coming. And Daryl. Daryl is the eye doctor. Daryl is the optometrist. Daryl is the man who tried to medicate Bill's mutation away. The website has hidden passages that name him. The website confirms what the Silly Straws page hinted. It could be a joke given beforehand. He's talking about dissecting a human eye, but given the previous hints of medical abuse, I wouldn't put it past him that he tried to get revenge on his eye doctor. Bill, the website implies, did get his revenge on Daryl. The book's chapter on human eyeballs has a coded message that, when decoded, reads as a kind of dark joke about a particular eye doctor who learned his lesson. The fandom has worked through several translations of this passage, and the cleanest one is that Daryl did not survive whatever happened to Euclidia, but his death was not just collateral damage. His was specific. His was personal. Bill, in the chaos of the dimension collapsing, made sure to find his eye doctor first. This is a small detail in the larger horror of the Euclidean massacre. It is also one of the most human details in the whole book. The first crime Bill ever committed was not destroying his home. It was settling a score with the man who told him his sight was a sickness. He killed his eye doctor before he killed his parents. He had been planning that one quietly for years. The book hides it under silly straws and eyeball dissection jokes, because Bill cannot say it out loud. He never apologizes. He just smiles through the code and waits for someone to notice. The fandom noticed. The fandom called it the first crack in Bill's villain origin. He did not start as a misunderstood revolutionary. He started as a kid who hated his doctor and learned the wrong way that he had enough power to make that hatred matter. Everything else came from there. The footprint theories. We left off the book at the statue with the footprint next to it. The website has not officially identified the footprint. The fandom has spent 18 months trying. The leading theory is that the footprint belongs to Mabel. Mabel, of all the Pines, is the one most likely to walk into the woods alone. Mabel is also the one most likely to feel sorry for a lonely demon and shake the hand without realizing what she was doing. Mabel has a history in the show of trying to save things that should be left alone. The fandom worries about Mabel. The second theory is that the footprint belongs to Stanford himself. Stanford in this reading has been visiting the statue in secret. He cannot bring himself to destroy it. He cannot bring himself to walk away. He goes and looks at it. He stands near it. He almost shakes the hand. He always pulls back. The fandom that buys this theory frames it as the saddest possible ending. Ford as the one human who could really truly bring Bill back, and the one human who has to decide every time he visits whether his loneliness is bigger than his sense. The third theory is darker. The third theory is that the footprint belongs to someone we have not met yet. A new character, maybe a reader, maybe a henchmaniac who survived, maybe one of the heads from the collection, somehow alive again. The fandom has gone wild with this one. Some say it is a future Pines kid. Some say it is a cult member from the Anti-Bill Society's descendants. Some say it is the Oracle herself, finishing her work. The book ends without an answer, and the website does not give one. That is part of the trap. The reader cannot stop wondering. The reader has to come back. The reader has to keep checking the website for new keywords, new updates, new clues. The book pulls you back even after you finished it. That is, of course, exactly what Bill wanted. That is the long con. He cannot break out of the theraprism, but he can make sure every reader of his book stays attached to him forever. He can make sure you keep his name in your mouth. He can make sure you keep his image in your head. He can make sure you visit thisisno-to-website.com one more time tonight. And the bird on the statue's outstretched hand? The small detail in the final image of the book sits there with its tiny weight on Bill's stone fingers. A bird is not a person. A bird cannot shake a hand. But a bird is alive. A bird is the first living thing to touch the statue since the apocalypse. A bird is, the fandom argues, a sign that the forest is starting to forget what the statue is, and that the world has moved on, and that one day, eventually, someone is going to walk by and see a statue in the woods and not be afraid. That is when Bill gets out. That is when the cycle starts again. That is what the eye glowing blue at the very end means. He is awake. He is waiting. He is patient now, the way the axolotl was patient with him. He learned that lesson at least. The Barnes and Noble pages. There is another layer of the Book of Bill we have not fully unpacked yet. The Barnes and Noble exclusive edition. Shortly after the initial reveal, Alex Hirsch revealed that, like with Lost Legends, the Book of Bill would also have an edition exclusive to American bookstore chain Barnes and Noble. Like the Barnes and Noble edition of Lost Legends, it had 16 additional pages of content, but unlike it that just had a sticker on it indicating the difference, this variant had a brand new cover that carries a gold-colored Bill cipher instead of a red one. The gold cover edition has 16 extra pages. Those pages sit between the Head Collection chapter and the Dreams chapter. They are titled More Secrets. The fandom calls them the gold pages or the bonus chapter. The exclusive content is found after Bill's Head Collection and before the Dreams chapter, called More Secrets. The pages begin with Bill providing a guide on various ways to summon him. The first thing in the More Secrets section is a guide on how to summon Bill. Bill walks the reader through several methods. Some are old, some are new, some are from the show, some are made up for this section. He gives instructions on the chant from Dreamscaperers. He gives instructions on a new chant that uses the reader's full birth name. He gives instructions involving birch trees, specific phases of the moon, and a particular drawing of the Bill cipher wheel. The guide is presented as helpful, like a how-to article in a magazine. Bill calls it a public service. The fandom on Reddit had a real debate about whether reading these pages out loud was safe. There was a thread weeks long about whether anyone in the fandom had actually tried any of the chants, and what had happened. Most people said they would not try. A few said they had whispered one quietly and nothing happened. The thread was equal parts joke and equal parts genuine paranoia. The book is designed to make you ask the question, and the bonus pages are designed to push the question harder. The whole gold edition is, in its way, a more aggressive trap than the original. Then Bill gets into more life advice in the gold pages. This Barnes Noble exclusive edition features a gold foil jacket and includes 16 extra pages of Bill's twisted life advice. He talks about how to manipulate your boss. He talks about how to win arguments. He talks about how to make people fall in love with you. He talks about how to convince a friend to give you their car. He talks about how to convince a stranger to give you their life. The advice escalates. The advice gets darker. By the last page of the gold section, Bill is, in his cheerful tone, walking the reader through how to take over someone's body without them noticing, step by step, like a recipe, like a chord chart. Like instructions for assembling a piece of furniture. The fandom calls this the most morally suspect part of the entire transmedia project. The original Book of Bill has plenty of trickster content, but it is mostly framed as confession and reveal. The gold pages are framed as a how-to. The fandom argued for weeks about whether including these pages in the bonus edition was a tonal mistake on Hirsch's part, or whether the bonus pages were the most committed bit in the whole book. The book is supposed to feel cursed. The bonus pages make it feel cursed. The fandom mostly settled on the bit being intentional. Bill, given another 16 pages to work with, would use those pages to push the deal harder. Of course he would. That is who he is. The gold pages also contain a few smaller revelations the fandom holds dear. Bill describes a few of his other patrons over the centuries in more detail. He mentions a queen in medieval France he tried to recruit who refused him. He mentions a samurai in Edo-era Japan who used his power for a single duel and then walked away clean. He mentions a coal miner in West Virginia who summoned him for help finding gold and who Bill double-crossed in the most boring possible way. The gold pages are full of these little vignettes. Each one is a one-pager. Each one is a snapshot of Bill's long career. The fandom treats them as canon side stories. People write fan fiction set in each vignette. The gold pages have probably generated more fan fiction per page than any other section of the book. And in the very last gold page, there is one more thing, a symbol, a new symbol, a symbol that does not appear anywhere else in the book or on the website. It looks like a key. It looks like a question mark. It looks like a piece of a face. The fandom has not solved it yet. The leading theory is that the symbol is a placeholder. The leading theory is that the symbol points to a third book Hirsch has not announced yet. The fandom is patient. The fandom is also paranoid. The fandom checks every Hirsch tweet for a hint about what the symbol means. The ISBN joke. One of the smallest but most beloved hidden details in the Book of Bill is the ISBN. For instance, many of the book's barcodes scan through as snarky messages from Bill. The ISBN on the page pictured above, for instance, directs to how to self-publish a children's book. The book has a real ISBN because it is a real published book with a real Disney publisher. But the in-universe ISBN, the one printed on the inside cover of the book object, is fake. If you scan it with a barcode app, the app pulls up an unrelated children's publishing reference. The joke is that Bill, in publishing his memoir from his prison cell, used a fake ISBN. He had to. He could not get a legitimate one. The Theraprism does not let inmates apply for ISBNs. So Bill, in his arts and crafts hours, faked one like a forger. Like a counterfeiter. Like a kid making fake money for a play. This is one of those Hirsch details the fandom adores. The book is so committed to its bit that even the barcode is in character. Every single object on every page has been thought about. Every detail has a reason. The fandom finds new ones every month. Someone on Reddit pointed out that the page numbers themselves form a cipher if you read them backwards. Someone on Tumblr pointed out that the dedication page is actually a curse. Someone on TikTok pointed out that the font Bill uses for certain words is slightly different than the font used for others, and the different font, when collected across the book, spells out a message that has not been fully decoded yet. The book is bottomless. The book keeps giving. The book is, in the most literal way possible, the cursed object Ford warned us about. Once you start looking, you cannot stop. Once you cannot stop, you are reading every page out loud. Once you're reading every page out loud, you have technically performed several of the summoning chants. And once you have performed the chants, well, the deal is what the deal is. The fandom calls this the rabbit hole curse. Nobody who picks up the Book of Bill puts it down for good. Even people who hated the book have come back to look at it again. The book is sticky. The book is alive. That was the whole point. Reality is an illusion, revisited. We talked about reality is an illusion earlier in the book. The hologram passage, the cosmic horror passage. We need to come back to it now because the website and the gold pages add a layer. The original passage did not have. The original line, in the show and in the early part of the book, is treated as Bill's villain monologue. Reality is an illusion. The universe is a hologram. Buy gold, buy. Just remember, the universe is a hologram. Reality is an illusion. Buy gold, buy E. The fandom turned it into a meme. The phrase shows up on t-shirts, mugs, tattoos, embroidered patches. It is the most recognizable Bill quote. The gold cover edition of the book uses this exact framing as a marketing tagline. Buy gold, get the gold cover. Bill is, in the meta layer, selling you the book itself with the same line he used to sell the apocalypse. Hirsch knows what he is doing. The fandom knows what he is doing. The joke is that even buying the Book of Bill is a small Bill deal. You're paying money. You are getting a cursed object. You're taking it home. You're reading it. You are making a deal you did not know you were making. Even the commerce around the book is part of the bit. Even the receipt from the bookstore is in character. The website expands this further. Type buy gold into the prompt on the website, and the screen flashes a coupon for the gold cover edition. The website is, on top of being a lore archive, an advertisement for itself. Bill is monetizing his own confinement. He is, even in cosmic prison, running a side hustle. The fandom finds this both hilarious and a little troubling. Bill in the Theraprism, with nothing but arts and crafts hours, found a way to publish a book, set up a website, and sell merchandise. He has, in his way, become the multiverse's first imprisoned influencer. The fandom calls this the Theraprism business model. It also explains something about why the axolotl is patient. The axolotl is letting Bill set up shop. The axolotl is letting Bill have his book and his website and his sales. Because every transaction is, in a small way, a confession. Every time Bill writes another page, Bill is putting more of himself on the record. Every page is, in the axolotl's view, therapy in disguise. Bill thinks he is escaping. The axolotl thinks Bill is processing. The axolotl is fine with the book existing because the book is page by page, slowly making Bill admit what he is. The cracks in his body get worse with every page he writes. Because every page is a small confession his body cannot help making. The book is not the escape attempt Bill thinks it is. The book is the long therapy session the axolotl knew he would need. This reading is the fandom's favorite. The axolotl is playing chess. Bill thinks he is playing chess. The axolotl is letting Bill move pieces. The axolotl is winning before the game even starts. The conspiracy theories. The fandom has built a layer on top of the book that is not officially canon, but is so widely accepted that it might as well be. These are the conspiracy theories, the fan theories. The reads on the book that fans pass back and forth on Tumblr and Reddit until they feel as solid as the printed pages. The first big one is what fans call the Bill was always going to lose theory. The reading is that everything in the Book of Bill, every win Bill ever had, every henchmaniac he ever recruited, every patron he ever ruined, was leading inevitably to the moment in Stan's mind. The axolotl in this reading has known the entire time exactly how Bill's story would end. The axolotl set up the universe in such a way that Bill could only ever land in the Theraprism. The fandom that buys this theory reads the entire show as a cosmic mousetrap. with Bill stomping around at the top thinking he is the predator, and the axolotl watching from below knowing he is the mouse. 60 Degrees that come in threes, watches from within birch trees, saw his own dimension burn, misses home and can't return. Says he's happy, he's a liar. The Axolotl's poem from the Choose Your Own Adventure ending of Dipper and Mabel's Time pirate book is, in this reading, a divine summary. The axolotl saw it all coming. The second big one is the Mabel saves Bill theory. The reading is that the footprint at the statue is Mabel's, and that at some point in the future, Mabel is going to be the one who shakes the hand, not to bring Bill back to wreak havoc. To bring Bill back so she can show him kindness. To bring Bill back so she can be the first being in the multiverse. To actually look at him and see him for what he is. A flat little boy who killed his family by accident, and tell him he is forgiven. The fandom that buys this theory reads it as the only possible happy ending for Bill. Not punishment, not therapy, not death. Mabel Pines, sweater queen of summer, with a heart so big she once tried to save Wendy from a flying eyeball bat, finally being the person who breaks the cycle. The third theory is the opposite. The fandom that buys this one reads the entire book of Bill as Bill grooming Mabel from across dimensions. Every page is, in this reading, designed to make a soft-hearted reader feel sorry for him. Every confession is bait. The dating tips chapter is a manual on how he plans to manipulate the next person who finds him. Mabel is, the fandom thinks, his ideal mark. Mabel is exactly the kind of person who would shake a stranger's hand to make them feel better. Bill knows this. Bill has been planning this since the moment he met her in sock opera. The book is, in this reading, the spider's web, and Mabel is the fly. The fourth theory is the Ford goes back theory. The reading is that Ford, after reading the book, after seeing every embarrassing private memory of his made public, will eventually have to do something about it. He cannot leave the statue in the woods. He cannot let the book exist in the world. He cannot let Bill have the last word. So Ford, in some future Gravity Falls story we have not seen yet, walks back into the woods and finishes the job. He destroys the statue, or, in a darker version of the theory, Ford fails. Ford gets there and sees the statue and remembers the best day of his life. Ford raises a hammer. Ford lowers it. Ford turns around. Ford goes home. The statue stands. The eye glows. The book is right. The fifth theory is the multiverse theory. The reading is that the axolotl runs the theraprism for souls from many dimensions, and that Bill is just one inmate among many. The fandom that buys this one reads the theraprism as a Marvel-style Nexus prison, and reads the Book of Bill as a teaser for future Gravity Falls or Disney content that will visit other inmates. The wizard with a clock for a face, the Saturn figure, these are not background characters. These are setups. The fandom expects them to matter someday. Hirsch has not confirmed any of it. The fandom does not need confirmation. The fandom is patient. The sixth theory is the most haunting. It is the Bill is the reader theory. The reading is that the Book of Bill is not actually a transmission from a cosmic prison. The reading is that the Book of Bill is the reader's own dark thoughts externalized. The reading is that every reader is, in some way, a flat little boy with a mutation they cannot stop seeing. A parent who tried to medicate them out of it. A guilty memory they cannot face. A cosmic crime they wish they could undo. The reading is that Bill is in all of us. The reading is that the book is a mirror. The book shows you Bill. You see Bill. You feel sorry for Bill. You feel scared of Bill. And the reason both feelings hit so hard is that the book has handed you a triangle-shaped reflection of yourself and asked you to make peace with it. The fandom that buys this theory does not need a footprint or a statue or a sequel. The fandom that buys this theory thinks the book has already done its work, and the work was inside you. That last one is the theory Hirsch has never directly endorsed, but Hirsch has hinted at in interviews. He has called the book a story about not being able to face yourself. He has called Bill the kind of villain you only get to write once, because the villain is, in some way, every artist's worst fear about themselves. He has called the axolotl the kindness he wishes he could offer himself. The fandom takes this and runs with it. The Book of Bill is, in the deepest read, not a horror novel. The Book of Bill is a confession written by a man pretending to be a demon, and the demon is pretending to be a man. Hirsch is pretending to be Bill, who is pretending to be a memoirist, who is hiding his real self under layers of jokes, and the reader is doing the same thing in their own life every day. Looking at the book and recognizing the trick because the trick is the same trick. They pull on themselves every morning when they get out of bed and decide which version of themselves to be today. The book is bigger than the lore. The book is bigger than the ciphers. The book is bigger than the statue in the woods. The book is, in the last analysis, a story about a person who could not bear to be loved, because being loved would have meant admitting what he did. And the entire fandom, 10 years deep into Gravity Falls, finally got to read it. What happens if you shake the hand? We have to ask the question the book asks. What happens if someone shakes the hand? The book hints. The book does not show. The book ends right before the answer. The fandom has worked out, from the various hints, what would probably happen. The statue would crumble. The stone would crack open. The Bill that has been waiting inside would, for a moment, be loose. Not at full strength, not at Weirdmageddon levels. Just a small, scared, hopeful triangle in the woods. Reborn. Reincarnated. In a way. The axolotl's deal would have technically been fulfilled, just not in the form the axolotl planned. Then he'll be reincarnated into another life form, like a lizard or a spore. This explains the axolotl's statement that he will take a different form. The axolotl said reincarnation in a different form. The axolotl probably meant something humble. A lizard, a spore, a worm in the dirt. Bill was supposed to come back as something small and quiet and slow. The shaking of the statue would skip that step. Bill would come back as Bill, not as a lizard, not as a spore, as himself, with his memories, with his hat, with his agenda. This is the loophole the book has been pointing at for 9 sections now. The book is, from a certain angle, a how-to guide for cheating the axolotl. Bill cannot earn his way out of the theraprism. Bill cannot fake his way out. The axolotl is too patient. The axolotl will see through every act. But if someone on the outside, in any dimension, in any timeline, can be convinced to shake the statue's hand, the system breaks. Bill is back. The axolotl loses, the cycle starts again. The fandom theory is that the axolotl, knowing all of this, has not destroyed the statue, because the axolotl is not allowed to. The axolotl is bound by the rules of its own deal. The axolotl gave Bill a chance. The axolotl cannot revoke the chance by force. The axolotl can only watch and wait. If a being on the outside ruins the deal by shaking the hand, that is on the being. That is on the universe. The axolotl will pick up the pieces, the way the axolotl always picks up the pieces, but the axolotl will not stop the shake from happening. This is the cosmic stakes of the footprint in the dirt. Someone has been there. Someone has been close. Someone has decided so far not to do it. But the bird is on the hand. The forest is forgetting. The world is moving on. And one day the fandom is sure. Somebody walks into the woods and does not know what the statue is, and reaches out and the eye glows brighter than blue. That is the cliffhanger the Book of Bill leaves us with. That is the answer to every secret the book has been hiding. The secrets all add up to one secret. The secrets are all building toward one moment. And the moment has not happened yet, but the moment is coming, and we are the ones being trained to recognize it when it does. What the book was really doing. Now that we have walked through every secret in the Book of Bill, every cipher, every coffee stain, every color cipher whisper from Bill's dead parents, every scratched out photo of the Oracle, every missing page from Journal 3, every head on the shelf, every dream from the Dreams chapter, every silly straw, every gold edition bonus page, every keyword on thisisnotewebcited.com.com, every theory the fandom has built on top of all of it, we can finally answer the question the book was secretly asking the whole time. What was the Book of Bill actually for? It was not for Ford. Ford has read it. Ford has tried to destroy it. Ford has thrown it into the bottomless pit. Ford has moved on, sort of. I do feel that in the wake of T-Bob, we as a fandom are neglecting the fact that Ford built an honest-to-God shrine to Bill, which he neglected to take down. Even after coming back through the portal 30 years later, Ford did not move on. Ford left the shrine up. Ford reads the book in his quiet hours. Ford is not the audience. It was not for Stan. Stan does not read books. Stan would not understand the ciphers. Stan would, if he found the book, use it to prop up an uneven table leg. Stan is not the audience. It was not for Dipper or Mabel. They were kids when Weirdmageddon happened. They are teenagers in the book's framing now. They have moved on from Gravity Falls in the show's epilogue. The book is too adult for them, in tone and content. This is the first Gravity Falls book aimed at adults, published under Disney's Hyperion Avenue Books brand, featuring much more intense violence, gore, explicit sexual content, and strong language than any previous installment in the series. Dipper and Mabel are not the audience. The audience is us. The audience is the fandom. The audience is the reader in our world, who picked up the cursed book from a shelf at Barnes & Noble and brought it home knowing exactly what it was. The Book of Bill is a transmission to fans who have been with Gravity Falls since 2012. The Book of Bill is Hirsch saying thank you for staying. The Book of Bill is a gift. The Book of Bill is also a test. The Book of Bill is asking the fandom whether they have grown enough in the 10 years since the show ended to read a story about a villain and feel pity, to read about a child who killed his parents by accident and feel grief, to read about a friend who betrayed a friend and feel both betrayals, to read about a god who runs a hospital and feel hope. The book is, in its deepest layer, a coming-of-age document for the audience that grew up with the show. The kids who watched Gravity Falls when it aired are adults now. The book treats them like adults. The book trusts them with the harder questions. The book trusts them to recognize a manipulative narrator and still finish the story. The book trusts them to feel something for Bill without forgiving him. The book trusts them to put it down and walk away when the deal is offered. The book trusts them. And that trust is the most generous thing Hirsch ever did for his fandom. The Axolotl's real lesson. The axolotl in the lore is the closest thing to a god the Gravity Falls multiverse has. The axolotl is also, in the lore, a therapist. The axolotl runs a mental health facility. The axolotl treats every inmate, no matter how monstrous, as a being capable of healing. The axolotl is, in cosmic terms, the most patient mental health professional in the universe. This trial turns out to be an inescapable reformatory prison called the Theraprism, where the souls of the very worst of the worst are kept until they finally and sincerely atone for their misdeeds in life, whereupon they reincarnate into a simpler form of life. The fandom has read the axolotl in many ways. Some see the axolotl as a Christian god figure. Some see the axolotl as a Buddhist bodhisattva. Some see the axolotl as Hirsch himself, the kindest possible version of an author, looking at a character he created and refusing to let that character be only what they did at their worst. The axolotl believes, against all evidence, that Bill can be healed. The axolotl believes the same about every other inmate. The axolotl believes the same. The book implies about every reader. That is the second secret of the Book of Bill. The book is not only about Bill, the book is about the kind of mercy a universe needs to have if anyone like Bill is ever going to come back from what they have done. The book is about how patient a god has to be. The book is about how slow healing actually is. The book is about how even when someone refuses to heal, the offer stays on the table. The axolotl never closes the door. The axolotl never gives up. The axolotl just waits. Bill cannot stand it. Bill would rather be in cosmic hell than sit through one more therapy session that asks him to talk about his mother. Bill would rather break himself apart again than face the parts of himself that have been scarring over. Bill does not want to heal. Healing means having to actually think through what happened. It means having to confront his past, confront destroying his home dimension, confront the harm he caused to others, confront the fact that he did not have to be this way. And he refuses to do that. He refuses to heal. This is the line the fandom keeps coming back to. Bill does not want to heal. Healing means looking at what he did. Looking at what he did would destroy him. So he writes a book instead. So he plots an escape instead. So he hurts himself instead of feeling the bigger hurt underneath. The fandom finds this excruciatingly real. The fandom recognizes it. The Book of Bill is, for a lot of readers, the most accurate description of avoidance they have ever read. Anyone who has ever picked a small ongoing pain over a big real one knows what Bill is doing. Bill is every reader who refuses to call their mom. Bill is every reader who refuses to apologize. Bill is every reader who would rather build a whole personality around a wound than just sit with the wound and let it close. The axolotl is the salamander god version of every kind person who has ever waited for someone they love to come around. The axolotl is, in its way, the most loving figure in Gravity Falls. The axolotl does not punish. The axolotl does not lecture. The axolotl just sits in its tank outside of time and tells Bill over and over that the door is open whenever Bill is ready. And Bill every day picks the cell. The last hidden secret. We have been telling you all night that there is one more secret in the book of Bill. The big one. The one you cannot see until you put the whole book down and walk away from it for a few hours. The one that does not show up on the page. The one that does not show up on the website. The one that does not show up in the gold edition. The last hidden secret of the Book of Bill is the fact that you read it. You finished it. You followed the ciphers. You decoded the silly straws. You found the coffee-stained tombstones. You read the color code from Bill's dead parents. You found the scratched-out oracle. You read the missing journal 3 pages. You met the axolotl. You watched Bill ask for help. You decided in your own way whether you would help him or not. You closed the book. You looked at the statue on the back cover. You felt the small chill of the eye, glowing blue, watching you back. You did all of that. The book did all of that to you. And the book did it because somewhere in your reading, you started caring. You started caring about a trillion-year-old triangle who killed his own mother by accident. You started caring about Ford Pines and his shame. You started caring about Fiddleford McGucket and his collapsing mind. You started caring about Mabel and the footprint in the dirt. You started caring about a salamander in a tank who has been waiting for everyone to come home. That is the trick the Book of Bill plays that is bigger than any cipher. The book makes you care. The book makes you sit with a villain long enough to find the child inside the villain. The book makes you sit with a child long enough to find the crime inside the child. The book makes you sit with the crime long enough to find the mercy that might still be offered. And the book, by the time you finish it, has trained you to look at every villain you meet for the rest of your life. With the same patience the axolotl gave Bill. The hidden secret of the Book of Bill is that the book is, secretly, on the axolotl's side. Bill thinks he wrote the book. Bill thinks the book is his escape plan. Bill thinks the book is his revenge on Ford and on Stan and on the universe. The book is not those things. The book is a therapy tool the axolotl let Bill make. Knowing the tool would heal the readers more than it would free the writer. The book is the axolotl's quiet little win. Every reader who finishes the book and feels something for Bill is in some way learning the kind of patience. The axolotl has spent 1 trillion years practicing. Every reader who feels sorry for Bill is in some way becoming the axolotl for a moment. Every reader who refuses to shake the statue's hand is in some way doing what Bill himself could never do. Saying no to the easy escape. Sitting with the hard truth. Letting healing take the time it takes. The fandom calls this the axolotl move. The fandom has, slowly in the 18 months since the book came out, started using the phrase in everyday conversation. To axolotl someone is to sit with them while they refuse to heal, without forcing them, without giving up on them, without joining them in the cell. To axolotl yourself is to wait for the part of you that does not want to face something, to finally be ready to face it. The Book of Bill gave the fandom a vocabulary the show never could. The book gave the fandom a god who is just patience in animal form. The book gave the fandom permission to be soft with monsters, and soft with themselves, and soft with the friends in their lives who have not figured out what they are yet. That is the last secret. That is the one Bill did not mean to write. That is the one the axolotl knew was being written the whole time. That is the gift Hirsch hid in a book about a demon. The book about a demon is all the way down, a book about how to be a person. The closing, the Book of Bill ends with a statue in the woods, the bird on the hand, the eye glowing, the forest growing back over the stone, the footprint in the dirt nearby. The pages are over. The covers close. The eye keeps glowing for a moment after you put the book down, or maybe that is the afterimage on the back of your own eyes. The book sits on your shelf, or on your nightstand, or on the floor next to your bed. The book waits. Bill is in the theraprism. Bill is still refusing to heal. Bill is somewhere outside of time, sitting in a padded room with crayons and scissors, trying to figure out what to write next now that his first book got confiscated. Bill is, the fandom thinks, working on a second book or a podcast or a TikTok account. Bill is, the fandom thinks, the kind of being who never runs out of attempts. The axolotl is, the fandom thinks, fine with that. The axolotl will be here when Bill is ready. The axolotl was here before Bill was born and will be here after Bill is gone. The axolotl is the longest patient in the universe. The Pines family is alive. Stan and Ford are sailing around the world, looking for anomalies. Dipper and Mabel are growing up. Wendy is living her life. Suze is running the Mystery Shack with Melody. Fiddleford is in his lab, with the book pinned under a dagger, watching the website prompt in case Bill ever sends a new message. The town of Gravity Falls is still weird. The forest is still full of gnomes and unicorns and hide-behinds and gremloblins. The statue is still in the dirt. The eye is still glowing. The world is still here. And you are still here on the other side of the book. Lying in bed, listening to this voice tell you the story of every hidden secret in a small yellow triangle's confession. The lights are low. The room is quiet. The book has closed. The story is over for tonight. And tomorrow, if you want, you can pick the book up again and find a new cipher you missed. Or you can leave it closed. Or you can walk into the woods of your own life and find the statues there and decide one by one which ones to shake hands with and which ones to leave standing. The axolotl is patient. The axolotl is waiting for all of us. There is no rush. There never was. The book is just a book. The triangle is just a triangle. The hat is just a hat, and it belonged to somebody once, and the somebody loved their son, and the son loved them back. And everything that came after was the long story of a child trying to forgive himself for an accident he could not face. That is every villain. That is most people. That is on the hard days. All of us. Sleep well. The eye in the woods can keep glowing without us tonight. The forest will hold the statue. The axolotl will hold the door. The book will hold itself closed until someone is ready to read it again. And the rest of Gravity Falls, every cryptid in every tree, every gnome in every clearing, every Pine's twin in every Pine's memory will be waiting whenever you want to come back. Good night, dreamer. Drop a comment below telling me which hidden secret in the Book of Bill stuck with you the most, and I'll see you in the next one.